to order and confirm that we have a quorum. The Board of County Commissioners meeting on April 27th, 2021 is being held in person, but this meeting also may be viewed on SGTV, on YouTube, and by registering to participate in the Zoom webinar. Residents can provide public comment in person or by registering to speak on the Seminole County website and Board of County Commissioners webpage. There you will find a link to register for the webinar entitled Meeting/Webinar Registration and Helpful Hints. If you are unable to join via a computer or online, interested parties should call 407-665-0808 for additional information on how to participate via telephone. We will take public comment on each item as it appears on the agenda. In order to be recognized to speak, if you are using a computer or iPad, you will need to use the raise hand feature, or if you're calling in on telephone, you will press *9. If you attend the meeting in person, you will be required to wear a mask and social distance. If you do not have a mask, one will be provided for you. Also, please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. And with that, the meeting is called to order. I would ask that Jocelyn Williamson of the Central Florida Free Thought Community of Oviedo to give the invocation.
Thank you, Chairman Constantine, Commission members, for this opportunity to offer an invocation. On behalf of the residents of the county, I thank you and all county employees for the hard work and effort you bring each and every day. As we prepare for this morning's meeting, let us pause and reflect on how far we have come and what we can do for the future. May we be inspired by the incredible citizens who have come together to support each other during this past year. As Thurgood Marshall once said, the measure of a country's greatness is its ability to retain compassion in times of crisis. Because we all forget from time to time, especially in the noisiness of modern life, may we remember that we are here to serve the common good of all. Today, the Commission will make decisions that will guide the growth of the county for generations to come. Martin Luther King famously said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" With that in mind, let every person here be open to conversation and discussion to make the best decisions. Let us use reason to evaluate the impact of the choices offered, and let us use compassion with each other as we listen and share our opinions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Don Epps, will you please come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Williamson and Mr. Epps, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, we certainly appreciate each and every one of you here today. It's always nice to see a lot of the citizens in the audience. We're going to go right now to the proclamations.
Mr. Chairman, can you wait 1 minute because
Chairman, we're all offline.
Okay.
Zoom has thrown us all
We're
off,
offline everywhere.
and for probably good reason.
I think everybody else is too.
And that's what my problem was in the beginning, so now it seems that everybody else is having it.
Just give us a minute, Mr. Chairman.
While we're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to go to the proclamations, awards, and presentations. There are 3 of them, or 2 of them today. Our tax collector will also be making a presentation, and then we will have the annual comprehensive financial report. So those were the first 4 things before we get into the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, I do have one person who wishes to speak. You will be able to speak prior to the vote, whatever that vote, whatever the motion is, you'll be able to speak prior to the motion. if it includes your item. So just wanted to let you know that's how we're going, and so everybody understands where we are.
I think we're good
Everybody good?
for the moment.
Okay.
Partially.
Okay.
Good enough to go.
All right, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the proclamations. The first one will be given by Commissioner Zimbauer, who will read something that we are all very proud of, and each month we do the Veteran of the Month award, or not award, just proclamation. So Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my distinct pleasure, fellow commissioners, to enter this proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners, recognizing posthumously Captain Rocky Harrelson, United States Air Force, for his outstanding service to the United States and Seminole County. Whereas brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas throughout our country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, leave their jobs, and put their futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation and its inalienable rights. And whereas there have been more than 30,000 living veterans in Seminole County who served our nation in times of peace and war, by their service they kept America strong. And whereas Captain Rocky Harrelson served in the U.S. Air Force as an officer and pilot, he attended flight training at Craig Air Force Base, Alabama, and was assigned to Homestead Air Force Base, Florida, to fly the Air Force F-4 Phantom II aircraft. There he completed radar training in preparation for a tour in Southeast Asia. Captain Harrelson served with the 13th Tactical Fighter Squadron, where he flew numerous combat missions and earned several awards, including the Distinguished Flying Cross with 1 Oak Leaf Cluster and the Air Medal with 8 Oak Leaf Clusters. He was also awarded the 13th Air Force Well Done Award for successfully coping with an in-flight emergency, thus preventing the loss of a valuable combat aircraft by skillfully piloting his battle-damaged F-4 Phantom II to a successful landing and barrier engagement. And whereas Captain Rocky Harrelson served as flight instructor in the RF-4C, stationed with the 62nd Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina, he also served in the 602's Tactical Squadron in Germany, training and testing in NATO forces in Europe. Whereas, upon completion of a master's engineering degree from the University of South Carolina, Captain Harrelson moved to Florida with Westinghouse Corporation. He soon returned to service in the U.S. Army Reserves, where he flew the A-12 Archangel, a high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft for the 138th Military Intelligence Company, Orlando, Florida, patrolling the U.S. southern border and Caribbean. He simultaneously worked for the Department of Defense as a project manager for the Naval Training Center and NAVAIR in Orlando, Florida, before retiring in 2004. And whereas Captain Rocky Harrelson worked with many charitable organizations, including the Spoken Word of God, which built schools, churches, a medical clinic, and a college for pastoral training in India, he also worked with Angel Flight and Mission Made Possible, where he flew burn victims free of charge to JMS Burn Center in Augusta, Georgia. He and his wife served this community by helping fill the needs of fellow citizens through Meals on Wheels and food from his local church. They were involved in many local projects, including saving our 1924 Geneva School, which became the Rural Heritage Center, Geneva Citizens Association, and Geneva's Historical Society, Geneva Players, and photography classes for less fortunate kids with Crealde School of Art. Now therefore be proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express our gratitude, admiration, and respect for Captain Rocky Harrelson for his outstanding service to the United States Air Force and the residents of Seminole County. While his physical presence is no longer with us, his contributions to this county, his community, and his veterans he assisted will always remain. Adopted this 27th day of April 2021. So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
I just want to say that I'm very happy to have so many from Rocky's family here with us today out of our district. Rocky was quite a character, as many of us knew. He did a lot for this community. He's dearly missed by many, including many of us here on the dais and many in the audience today. But if he taught us one thing, it was the unselfishness of giving back to your community, sometimes at the peril of your own self. And so I'm very proud that Rocky hails from District 2 here in Seminole County.
All right, there's a bit of motion seconded by Commissioner Lockhart. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Are there individuals that would like, Jay, would you like?
Yeah, we'll go down. I would also like, Ms. Harrelson has brought a guest book at the front lobby. If you all, as you leave and come today, if you would be kind enough to sign in the guest book, so that memory will be in the hands of the family. I would also ask, as we give this proclamation, I'm going to ask for a corrected one with the proper language and syntax put into it and be given to the family as we are able to do so. I know that that's been worked once, but we still have some issues there.
Yes,
But-
unfortunately, from time to time, that we have some clerical
Sure.
errors and Scribner errors.
So-
With that, come on down, Commissioner Zimbauer and all of us, and we'd love to take a photograph with the family. Step up to the plate.
Family first, friends second.
Whoever's going to accept it, you see the white stripe here?
On the tape. You just did that.
You can see it in the eyes. When you really smile, you really can. Yeah, they're all
All my districts here.
You know what?
Madam Ford back out there.
Can some people just get in front of and kind of get down? The young ones are going to go down. That's why I said the young ones.
Everyone in? All right. On my count, 3, 2, 1.
We're not, unless it's still there after the beginning of the. Yeah, if they'd like that.
Welcome, thank you for coming, and that we are going to lunch over at the Jacksonville thing.
Miss Harrelson, I'm sorry to bother, but could you do it on the microphone for public record? And could somebody bring down the book so the commission could sign it, please?
Oh, that's
Would that be all right?
I I just wanted to welcome every single person here and thank you for coming. And just, you're invited to go to lunch with us over at the, I think it's called Seminole Center. The little Japanese buffet over there was one of my husband's hangouts, especially around lunchtime. So please join us if you can. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jessie.
ma'am.
Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Okay, as we get all that together and if, like I said, if after they sign it, if somebody could bring that book down, I'd appreciate it. Oh, it's right there. Perfect. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thank you.
We're going to now move on to the next item on the agenda. It's a proclamation proclaiming May 2nd through the 8th as the National Travel and Tourism Week in Seminole County, and Commissioner Delory will make the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming May 2nd to the 8th, 2021 as National Travel and Tourism Week in Seminole County, Florida. Whereas this year celebrates the National Travel and Tourism Week, marks the 38th anniversary, and is the theme, Power of Travel, recognizing that travel has been a constant driver of Central Florida economy, and whereas travel has been the foundation of the healthy workforce, serving one of the largest private sector employers in the United States, supporting 17 million jobs in 2019, and whereas spending travel by aided the state and local government alike, generating $180 billion in tax revenue in 2019 to support essential services and programs. And whereas travel and tourism depends businesses and organization, 38%, which are small businesses, are responsible for welcoming visitors from all around the world and employed by our country, has to offer. And whereas last year, COVID-19 devastated every sector of the travel industry with staggering decline in 2020 as compared to 2019, affecting every community in the country. And whereas due to the pandemic, some of the county's visitation numbers decreased by 25%, the tourism development collections declined by nearly 30%. And whereas part of the county's commitment towards boosting local economy and supporting the reemployment of dislocated workers, more than $3 million in Seminole County Care dollars was designated in supporting local hospitality partners, and whereas the Power of Travel will drive and rebuild the U.S. economy and American workforce by revitalizing our region and moving us towards a more prestigious future. Now for Seminole County Board of County Commissioners to here proclaim May 2nd to the 8th, 2021, to be known as National Tourism Week, adopted this 27th day of April 2021.
Second?
Motion and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Where is Miss Madison Youngman? There you are. I couldn't find you.
Should we all go down and...
Yes, please, let's come down.
Bring our pineapples? Of course.
If we're taking photos.
Why wouldn't we?
As all of you know, pineapple is the symbol for hospitality. It is not a bribe.
By the way, they will on Seminole County.
We got a couple more people on this side?
I'll get over there, Bob. I'll get over here. All set.
Sure, I'll say you first.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Youngman, you have the floor.
Good morning. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you on behalf of our President and CEO, Robert Agrusa, of the Central Florida Hotel and Lodging Association, and our members, which make up 80% of the hotel rooms in all of Central Florida, for your support of the hospitality industry through the Board of County Commissioners and the team at Seminole County to Orlando North for their support of our industry throughout this very difficult year. We are looking forward to a much improved 2021, so thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good luck. We're certainly looking for a much better year, a banner year this year, as people have the opportunity to start moving around the country. Okay, the next item on the agenda is J.R. Krull, our tax collector. J.R., there you are. And by the way, J.R., being that this is your first couple of months in office, we are very happy to welcome you here. Looking forward to a positive relationship. And we've already seen a lot of very positive steps that you have taken so far in your office. Thank you very much.
And we're looking forward to that big check at the end of the year.
Yes. That was after the presentation. I was going to say that.
No pressure.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is J.R. Kroll, and I am the new Seminole County tax collector. My presentation today I wanted to come up with was, I got elected here to bring the fiscal responsibility back to Seminole County, which is what I ran on and what I plan to do for us. So one of the things I have to do is get in there and fix the mistakes of the previous administration. So we were looking at a lot of rentals that were done by the county, by the tax collector's office, which were high-priced rentals, money not spent well. So really what I wanted to do is to get, like we should, which is be purchasing a property to where we're not where the money never stops. We keep going out there, which in turn will bring more money back to Seminole County. The building we're looking at, if we can go to the next slide. Oh, I got a clicker, okay.
You can drive.
I get to drive this one.
Yep.
Oh, no, not that one. There it goes, okay. Yes, and like I said, I was elected here for Seminole County, and I was sworn to, do what's best for Seminole County. Now, we're going to consolidate offices is what my plan is. We currently have the administration building that was, rented by Joel Greenberg. That was a total, it was three units up there, a total of 8,600 square feet. At the time when I came here, there was only 13 employees working in 8,600 square feet. So obviously we were like, this is not acceptable at all. So I've already eliminated 2 of the leases, and I've taken down using the smallest one, which is 2,300 square feet, and I'm housing my IT department and my accounting in that one. And the second one that we're doing a high rental on is our Longwood branch, which is about 7,000 square feet. That one has like 16 employees. So what we want to do is to find a building that we've already located. We're hoping that if everything works out with it, because we still have to work through a lot. But that building would be that's a 16,000 square foot building. And what we would like to do is get rid of our Longwood branch and transpose it into the new building for the first floor. On the second floor, we could move our accounting and IT into, along with any other facilities we need to fit in there also, because there is plenty of room. Now, the current Longwood branch, let's see if I can read it without my glasses. Yeah, we're paying over $12,000 a month in rent on that branch, because it comes up to like $156,000 or $155,000. So after 5 years, we've already spent $734,000 on a 5-year lease. Then we have that lease is going to end now October 31st. So once that lease expires, this gives us time right now to locate a building, find a building, and do a build out. So just in time for this one to expire, we can move into the new building and have that first floor ready to go. And it's in a good centralized location. Now, the current admin building, like I said, I've already eliminated 2 of those leases, so we're down from the previous monthly rent with all 3 was at $15,000 a month. The last remaining lease, we have a 3-year remaining lease on that one for the $5,800. The lease end date for that one is March 30th of 2023. And then once we terminated these 2 leases, that's saving us $9,700 a month. So $67,000 for the remainder of this year we're saving on that. And then those 2 other leases, the termination date is going to be now at the end of this month, so we don't have to worry about making any more payments to that. Now, my new proposed branch location, it's in Westmont, right off of 436, so it's very centrally located, west side of Altamont, and so we're on the other side of I-4. We have a good location for proximity. There's bus drop-offs. It's right by where the old wing house used to be, and where Amigos is. It's right nearby where that used to be. So it's a very good location for us. That building is 16,000 square feet. We're looking at the purchase price that we've negotiated from. We started asking was 1.9. I negotiated it down to 1.695. Estimated construction costs about $200,000, and within 5.5 years, the building should pay for itself, as opposed to paying the rent that we've been paying. So the bottom floor, for 8,000 square feet approximately, would be for our DMV office, and the 8,000 square feet above, we're going to house our IT administration, and not the administration, the IT, the accounting, and we're hoping to do even our call center in there also, because there's plenty of room. And I had spoken with Grant Malloy about possibility of even putting an office, one of his small offices there to pay tickets, so we can help make it easier for the people of Seminole County. And we could also eliminate another lease that's being used over by the Outback Steakhouse, the small lease there, that could be eliminated also once he would move into our location. So just, part of that is pretty simple. I just wanted to come out and explain what my alternate plan was. I did get a questionnaire from a citizen that had some questions that maybe I can answer, and hopefully if everyone has the same kind of questions, I can eliminate them right off the bat. One of it was whether or not there was going to be any problem with this, the size, being that the size difference of the 2. And it's not. I mean, the 7,000 square feet we're using for Longwood right now, there's like a lot of wasted space in that place. This one here, like let's say, has a gigantic break room in the Longwood branch. Well, that break room can now go to the upstairs part, and we can utilize all 8,000 square feet just for DMV. They were asking if there was any personnel at risk to leave their positions. I don't believe so. No one has expressed anything. Most people live on the other side anyway, closer to that new location. But it's the new location is only 8.2 miles from the Lake Mary admin, and there are no residents that go to Lake Mary admin now, because we already moved out. Concealed weapon permits has moved in with Lake Mary. So really, you just have accounting and IT left in there. So they would be moving to the new location. And the new office the new location would only be 2.9 miles from the current Longwood location. So it's still very close. So there's no services being done at Lake Mary admin. They asked about if the price was negotiated, and I did say yes. The original price was 1.9, and we got it at 1.695. That's pretty good savings right off the bat, especially for around $100 a square foot for a building that size is doing really well. We really think that having that size, even though it's bigger than what we needed, it's better to have the bigger size than the smaller, because the price didn't change much. I had looked at other properties that were smaller and similar in price, and they could be 6,000 square feet smaller. An example of what the difference would be if we were going to build something as opposed to buying an existing and refurbishing it, we're looking at a building like similar size, which would be our Castleberry branch. That one would probably, at today's market, cost us probably about $8 to $10 million to build. We'd have to do the land acquisition plus the building it from scratch, so it would be quite a bit more. Whereas if I'd be like total about around $2 million for this whole building. They also asked about the maintenance on the property, if there's any maintenance. I said we do have to obviously pay for our own lawn care. There is no HOA there, but we would have to pay. I would say there's not much grass, so we're probably looking at $500 a month maybe for landscaping of that property, which we currently don't pay with on the rental property. Okay, they asked if the building was ADA compliant. That's something we would have to discover during our due diligence period. Once we make our purchase and we get agreement from both buyer and seller, we have our 30 to 45 days to go in and see what this is all going to entail for our cost-wise. And that's where we're going to have to really get a cost analysis knuckled down to see what we would need for our next year's budget to do the actual build-out. Let's see. They were asking about if there was a reduction in parking spaces. The answer to that would be yes and no. There is less parking spaces than, let's say, where we have the admin building and the Protegrity building that's Longwood, because those have much more tenants in those. This one would be our standalone. So we'll have 80 spots there. And an example would be we have 36 spots in Lake Mary. So you can see we have like 44 extra spots for this building. So it's going to be quite a bit easier for parking, which is one of the biggest reasons that we were selecting that building. We have enough money in our budget this year to purchase the building, but we don't have enough money to do the build-out. So we're going to put our budget for next year for our build-out, which is the much smaller number. But at least this way we can acquire the building now and get time to start doing our planning and everything that we need to before December. We'd have the money for the second half. And they want to know if there was going to be a project manager. Sorry, this is lengthy, but...
That's quite a citizen you've got there.
Yeah, it's kind of...
That's amazing. Yes, someone's very engaged.
So second one was if there was going to be a project manager. We have, my COO, Paula, has been through a bunch of these already. She was through with Castleberry build-out. She was there when the Lake Mary build-out, Winter Springs build-out. She's already done these. So, and also even with the Longwood, which would be the most similar to what we're doing, is just an interior build-out. So she's the one who would handle all the operations of this, about where, handling for the MOUs and everything, for getting everything to go transition smoothly from going from Longwood to there, so we're not interrupting our service for the people of Seminole County. There was no lease. They wanted to know if there was any termination costs for the leases. If we terminated the 3-year lease early, because we wanted to get them out, there would be some. We'd have to determine at that time when it's ready. But for the other one, it should expire right around the same time. We're actually hoping we don't run overtime, because construction is pretty slow right now to get materials and such and work through it. So we're hoping the timeline is good. It's always, like all construction projects, it's kind of a crapshoot at that point. They asked if there was going to be any financial, I know, like I said, I got a lot of pages. They asked if there was going to be any amount of financing on this, and I said, no, we're not going to hold debt on this at all. It's just a purchase. They were asking about moving costs. I said, yes, of course, there would be some moving costs. Mostly would be our computer systems and such. We would be building the counters and everything in there, so that would be very minimal. They want to know about what the typical closing costs would be. I said about, on the building, that price, we're probably about $15,000 in closing costs. If any new furniture, once again, we wouldn't know that until we got farther into it. They had also asked about the property taxes, which was kind of a strange question, if saying that because the current owner is paying $20,000 a year on property taxes, and they were asking if we expense that onto ours, that $20,000, because now we would not be paying the taxes on the property, but it doesn't, that's an income coming in, that's not an expense. So for Seminole County, and since we took in just over $1 billion last year, we're looking at $21,000 being 0.00021% of our annual income. So I don't think that's a reason to not purchase the property for losing a $20,000 rent, property tax. They want to know what the expense would be for the site changes. To explain to the public, we would just do the usual, internet for our websites and through social media to try to get it out there. We did change locations. Then we had the big question was, previous to being the tax collector, I own a real estate company, which my wife is now running. I've stepped away from it completely. And they were asking if there was any monies or anything going back to my company, and I said absolutely not. There's nothing. There's no way I would do that. So this is definitely an arm's length transaction. We have a commercial real estate broker that we had obtained, is the one that I only met through the tax collector's office now. So we were utilizing him to do the transaction, and I get no benefit from this at all, and my family doesn't get any monies coming back or anything like that. I would never jeopardize the trust of Seminole County with something so trivial. That's about it for what the questions were, but did anybody else have any other questions regarding the building?
Are there any questions?
I do, whenever.
Go right
I
ahead,
think
Commissioner.
Commissioner Herr has some. I'll let her proceed.
JR, does the 5.5-year payback calculation take into consideration maintenance and upgrade? Clearly, this is a good deal, right? So usually real estate good deals come along with a little something else. So I'm just wondering whether the calculation contemplated ongoing maintenance for an older building.
Yeah, I mean, the building's not that old. I think it was built in the 90s. So we are going to have to do our due diligence inspection period for the roof and the air conditioning. I think the air conditioner was from 2006. Commercial unit, it's going to be expensive. But those are things we have to, once we get our inspectors in there, the professionals that can tell us what it is, there's a possibility we would renegotiate terms at that point for, to negotiate the price down. I mean, I say expensive in the big scheme of things. If we said a $30,000 AC system, it's not that bad of a deal to get them to, cut the brake on it if that's what needs to be done.
Yeah, the roof is different.
The roof would be expensive, but
That's it.
My questions and inquiry are along the same lines. O&M, so we can forego that. My question is, the ADA statements you made, I've made a lot of commercial transactions in my day through my business, and I wonder, have you not been able to access the property to do a walkthrough and understand what's there now and what the retrofit cost would be for ADA, number one, and what the true cost, and I understand the due diligence process and so forth. It would seem to me that we would understand that far enough in advance before the due diligence process, so we would keep our options open of other properties that may be available and identify those should this one not work. I'm just trying to understand a little bit about, it sounds like we really haven't done a whole lot of looking at the building until the due diligence process. And I understand the full mechanical inspections and so forth, I've got that, but I would sense that you've been in the building, the experts have been in the building, your building people have had to have looked at it and say, well, we're going to have a retrofit here, a retrofit there, some kind of cost analysis of ultimately, once you've purchased the building, notwithstanding HVAC problems or roofing problems and so forth, what does it take to move into the building and make it compliant?
Yeah, and that's where we, obviously, I mean, tomorrow I'm actually meeting with the Altamont city manager. We're going to go over some of these things more in detail about the property, and he can start helping me with the research of it, of what needs to be done. As far as what I've seen non-ADA compliant in there, I mean, the bathroom doors seem fine. Everything like that seemed fine to where we are. I see ramps. I see there's, I got to see if the city of Altamont requires maybe one more handicap, parking spot, or what we require on that side. But mostly it'd be that there's no elevator in the building, so we already calculated that we would be needing to put in an elevator. That would be about the biggest issue, and that would be for the employees upstairs, not for the general public downstairs. General public downstairs would be, first floor, and that's the whole reason we would only look at something that is first floor.
Sure. So in your budget, what percentage of tolerance have you built in to determine a no-go situation based on your current price agreement?
I mean, if it was anything over $200,000 to where that would be way blown out, right now, I mean, at 1.695, even if we put in, once we put in the $200,000 for our own retrofit to make it work as a DMV, it's still a great deal. There's not really any options. I tried to purchase the building next door that had an elevator, and then we got outbid on that one by someone else. And then there was another building I put a bid on that was all one floor that would have worked out fantastic, but the parking issue, because they didn't have assigned parking. So we only had, I think, 30 spots that were assigned.
Sure.
So those are problems we can't fix. Right. So I was just like, no, this one, if the AC is bad or the roof is bad, it says we can work through those things, but we can't work through a lack of parking. Which is like, I didn't want to make another Lake Mary parking issue, you know?
Sure, exactly. Okay, great. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Mr.
no
Kroll.
problem.
And good luck on your new endeavor. We're
It'll
looking
be a lot of
forward.
work.
We're looking forward to a great working relationship with your office.
Oh, thank you.
Question.
Commissioner?
Thank you so much for coming here today and sharing your thoughts on this. I think, it's always helpful to get feedback from other people, and certainly, as we all know, the tax collector, as a constitutional officer, doesn't need permission from this board, as we've been told many times publicly, to make decisions. So thank you for stepping out and attempting to develop a good working relationship with us. On the 260 Wekiva Springs lease, how many different suites does that lease agreement cover?
How many different, what does it cover?
Suites. Is it one
It's
suite?
three, it's three, but they were all combined into one, so they actually had knocked out walls and did.
Do you
that.
recall what the suite numbers were?
Not offhand, no, I'd have to pull that info.
Yeah, is it in the lease agreement?
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great if you wouldn't mind letting us know that. That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillard?
JR, thank you. Thank you for coming up and talking to us, letting us know what's going on, and being a true partner.
Yes, no
Just want
problem.
to say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Do you mind?
Commissioner, yes.
Can I ask a
County Manager?
I just have one question. I know you and I chatted about this offline, but your existing budget for this fiscal year anticipates a return of $700,000 to the county in excess fees. Is the purchase going to impact that?
No, we're actually hoping that we're going to have even a little more than that. We're trying to get it to where we're cutting everything. Obviously, if this purchase goes through, we're cutting a lot of stuff to just tighten our belt for the rest of this year, and we're trying to hopefully get up to $1 million, because I know anything under $1 million is not very impressive. So we're trying to really do everything we can to at least get that $1 million mark back to the county and still make a purchase of the building.
So I think that's great. I think it's important to get on the record that this proposal would not impact the anticipated return or our budget. So just
Good job.
Well, thank you, our $1 million man.
Yeah. Only if it works,
JR, the others have said this, and I just wanted to concur. The fact of the matter is, the fact is that you even came here and explained this to us is a refreshing change. As you know, we're going to have to make some steps to try to recapture some of the money for the taxpayers that has occurred. But we really are looking forward, as we have with all the other constitutionals, a good working relationship with the tax collector. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your hard work and effort. And as Commissioner Lockhart said, whoever that citizen is really worked hard in your office. So for the questions, but also because they were great softball questions, but also.
I figured getting them answered, because it's going to answer a lot of other people's questions.
No, you did honestly, you did a great job. I know this is your first elected position, so I just wanted to let you know that was great, and we're really looking forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure I bring up pineapples next time.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next
Thanks,
is a
JR.
presentation of our annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2020. And I believe that's Dan O'Keefe. Under there? Yes, it is.
Chairman, if it's okay, I'll introduce, we have Jay
Please do,
Spencer as
Commissioner.
the Director of the
No,
Comptroller's Office is here. We have Dan O'Keefe from MSL, the county's external auditors, to make a president of the CAFR. We did post it online to seminolclerk.org. We do have some copies I think everybody's gotten to your office. It shows the good financial situation Seminole County's in. Also, I dropped off on your desk, and this is available to the public. Well, all this information is available to the public, but this is our hot off the press, our Citizens Financial Report, which is a slimmed-down version of statistics, a financial picture of Seminole County. Those are available to citizens through our website, seminolclerk.org. I also make them available for people attending jury duty, or if they come into our office. We always like to be transparent with the county's finances. And I will point out, we just got the award from the GOFA for excellent financial reporting just last week on our last version of it. So that's 2 times we won the award on that. And on the CAFR, it's been over 30 awards for that over the years. So our office is one of the top 5 in the state as far as number of awards for excellence in financial reporting. So with that, I'll turn over to Dan to go through the CAFR as our external auditor, and Jenny Spencer is available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk and Comptroller. And Mr. O'Keefe, you are on, sir.
Mr. Chairman, it's a pleasure to be here. Members of the commission, it's always a pleasure to come and do this part of the audit, which is the end in the final, and I know Jenny likes this part too. Let me walk you through what we've got. As you know, the clerk's office and the finance department in particular actually prepare the comprehensive annual financial report. It's a pretty involved document, several hundred pages. It seems to go on forever, and it does. Our job is to basically audit the information within the financial statements, and we issue a variety of different reports to give you some assurance that the information is correct. So the first report that we issue is on page 1, and that's the independent auditor's report, and that's the report on the basic financial statements themselves, and it's an unmodified opinion, which is the one you want. Also within the packet is a report on internal control over financial reporting compliance. This is on page 195. These are the internal controls in place as it relates to recording the information within the financial statements themselves. I mean, there's a variety of different controls you obviously have in this county, but we focus on the ones that are directly related to the financial statements. The next report is the independent accountant's report on investment compliance. This is a statutorily required report to make certain that you're in compliance with the Florida statutes and your own investment policies, and we had no findings there either. There's a independent auditor's management letter, which you'll find on page 198. This is required by the rules of the Auditor General. Whether there's findings or not, there's a whole bunch of things that we have to address within this report. And one of the things we have to do is a financial condition assessment related to the county too, and you came out in a favorable mode with regard to that. And then we have the federal and state single audit reports on page 201. You get a substantial amount of federal and state financial assistance, and we have to go through a process of identifying the major programs and testing those for compliance. We also have a variety of reports related to the constitutional officers. So according to Florida statutes, each officer has to be audited and their financial statements audited. So each one of the officers have their own report on the financial statements. They have an internal control report, they have an investment report, and they also have a management letter too. So when you look at the county, it's multiple audits. There's a lot of different layers of auditing, so a lot of auditing goes on during this process. Here are the reporting units. Reporting units are basically the elements that we're opining on. So if you think of the top-level financial statements where your governmental activities and business activities are, everything feeds up into that top level. So the transactions themselves, though, occur in the fund levels. So if you get into the governmental funds, for example, general fund being the mothership of all funds, and that's your primary budgetary fund. And the funds underneath listed there are the major funds that were identified for which we had to go in and opine on. And then the smaller funds are the non-major governmental funds, which are aggregated together and which we opine on. So we're actually rendering opinions on all these different reporting units as we kind of go through this audit process. And we flip over to your proprietary funds. You've got multiple funds there. You've got agency funds. You have the notes of the financial statements, and you have other financial statements that appear in the back of the comprehensive annual financial report. And I always kind of like to hit on this terminology just to remind you that, you know, when we say expenditure, we're talking about governmental funds, and we're talking about literally anything that's spent. So a capital outlay item would be considered an expenditure. If we're going over into the full accrual world, we talk about expenses. And if you've got a proprietary fund, such as a water and sewer fund, when you do a capital purchase, it's on the balance sheet and it's amortized and depreciated over a period of time. So that's just a little distinction between the terminology, where the governmental funds are more budget focused and the proprietary funds are more operating focused. And then revenue on your governmental funds is recorded when available predominantly, and then income is reported when earned in your proprietary funds. Governmental funds use what's called a modified accrual basis. Proprietary funds use a full accrual basis. Agency funds use a full accrual basis as well. Now, here are the changes in your net position, and I had a chance of discussing this with all of you, of course. And one of the things I did was we talked a little bit about the difference between the pandemic versus the financial crisis back in 08, 09. And financial crisis in 08, 09 was kind of a very slow burn. And it really went right to the heart of your revenues, which was property taxes. And it took a long time to dig out of that hole, because as you know, property taxes can drop like a rock, and property values can drop like a rock, but then it gets back into the limitations in terms of coming back up. Well, the good news here with the pandemic is your property taxes, actually kind of went up during this period. Property values have kind of continued to climb during this period. So this is more of a flash fire type crisis that we're in. There were certain areas that were obviously hit. Sales and gas taxes got hit. State revenue sharing got hit. But the money that came in from the federal government under the CARES Act was critical in keeping you whole throughout this fiscal year. So about $66.8 million came in before, or was recognized by September 30th. And that allowed you to pretty much cover all the costs and do the operations that was necessary and provide the services to the community that was necessary, and still have a positive bottom line at the end of the year. This is basically the top-level view of your equity situation or net position. I always like to kind of point something out with regard to governments. In government financial reporting, we have this top line here called net investment in capital assets. Other reporting models don't have that. If you look at the nonprofit reporting model, they don't have that. If you look at the commercial reporting model, they don't have that. It just happens to be something that the governments like to do, or the government accounting standard boards prefers to show. To me, the bottom line is, what is your total net position? And your total net position, if that was a negative, that would be really, really problematic. So if you were a nonprofit organization, that net investment in capital assets would actually be under unrestricted, and you would have a positive, unrestricted number. But again, it's just unique to the governmental reporting, nothing really to worry about. What's driving that is just the pension liabilities that are kind of booked in there that will be paid out over many, many, many years to come. Your general fund revenues is just a summary of your general fund revenues, and which, as we know, the largest amount that you have coming in your general fund is property taxes. And then right here is just kind of a summary of your expenditures. As you can see, your biggest line item is public safety, and this kind of gives you a breakout to see some of the areas where constitutional officers are spending money and how much their budgets are. And then finally, your reserves, and this is something we've had long conversations about. Your general fund reserve is really very good, no issues there. Your enterprise funds have very, very strong reserves, and there's no issues there. So overall, I think you can look at this county and saying your financial condition is very good, and there's nothing to be overly concerned about, and all we can hope for is that we get out of this pandemic as fast as possible and get sales tax and gas tax revenues flowing back into the levels that we saw back in 2019. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to open it up for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Keefe. Are there any questions of our auditor?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Delory.
Thank you. Mr. O'Keefe, annually, we talk about how we stack up with other communities, either cities and counties. Will you be able to provide that to us at a later date?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. As we mentioned, Commissioner, there's several counties that decided to ask for an extension, and some of the ones we like to compare you to are still not done. But I'll be happy to get something like that to you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So do citizens.
Commissioner O'Keefe, Mr. O'Keefe, one of the things that you've done in the past is shown the general revenue as far as percentages of reserves with some of the other counties in the surrounding area, and I understand that we are well above many of those counties, if not, certainly all of those counties, but we're well above many of them. But I don't think I've ever seen it on the enterprise funds and the other funds. Could you provide that for us this year, if that's possible?
Yeah, and you're going to see that you're kind of, again, much higher than a lot of those as well.
It's a good benchmark,
No,
though.
sure.
I just would
Happy
love
to
to
do
see
that.
that, and I
Absolutely.
appreciate it very much.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
Mr. O'Keefe's going to do that, can you also give us their bond rating as well?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay, next to it.
I can get that for you. Okay.
Anything else? Commissioner Lockhart.
Since we're adding asterisks, I'm going to add one more, if you don't mind. Some of the counties that are around us that we like to compare ourselves to hold their reserves differently in some cases, and they don't show in the overall big bucket. So could you just notate that as well? Because I think I want to be sure when we're comparing, it's apples to apples.
Yeah, and Commissioner, what I do is I kind of ignore the budget side when I'm talking about reserves. I look at the actual side and look at where the results are at the end of a fiscal year. So that gives us that accurate comparison between entities. So, because you're right, different entities budget reserves very differently.
Right.
And that's why you can kind of get tied up in the whole budgetary process. And so I kind of just say, I'm not going to worry about the budget. I'm going to worry about the actual. What are the actual results? Where do you stand at the end of the fiscal year? And how do you stack up to other governments?
Fantastic.
And that is a fair comparison, I think.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, great. Wonderful.
And that's one of
Thank
the
you.
reasons I was asking for the enterprise funds, because we haven't seen those in the past from the other counties.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Commissioner Hurd.
I'll just throw in a big thank you to the clerk's office and all the hard work you do on this, and to our team, including Lori Bailey Brown and Tim Jackson crew, because it all rolls up and it has to be clean at the point you all are working with it. And so it's important to recognize really good work to get all of the results that we have here. So thank you to everyone for doing that. And thank you to our state consultant as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Keefe. Appreciate very much. Always good to see you. And I
always a
wanted to
pleasure.
echo what Commissioner Hurd said. It's wonderful, the relationship that we also have with you, Grant. I appreciate it very
Right,
much.
I appreciate those kind words. It's really been working out, a lot of good cooperation on these projects, and it's good to have different entities working together.
Thank you. Okay,
you,
thank you
sir.
very much. All right, pursuant to Florida law, the public has the right to be heard on all propositions, except when the Board of County Commissioners is acting on a ministerial or emergency matters or conducting a meeting exempt from Section 286.011 Florida statutes. Public comment time on propositions shall be 3 minutes for individuals and 6 minutes for group representatives. The right to be heard during a quasi-judicial hearing is governed by Florida law. The public will be provided the opportunity to be heard on non-agenda matters at the end of the meeting. Proper decorum, obviously, will be observed. If members of the public would like to make a comment and are attending the meeting, you will be called first. If using a computer, iPad, or other electronic devices, click the raise hand feature and you will be called on next. Lastly, if you have called in on a telephone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. You will be called in the order that the that you have raised your hand. County Manager, do you have anything as far as changes in the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. We have one deletion from the consent agenda, item number 22. Staff is going to continue to work on that item. That's a nationwide contract. We'll bring that back to you at a later date.
So keep that in mind, Commissioners, to not include 22 on your motion. We do have a public comment form concerning, I believe, item 19. Judith Smith. Ms. Smith?
Councilwoman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to note that Ms. Smith is also a councilman from the city of Oviedo. I'd like to welcome her publicly with her position as well.
Since that is your district, I will let you, I was going to announce that, but that's fine.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith, good to see you, Councilman.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing me to come before you. The number 19 was brought to my attention a few days ago, and I am so excited because when I was sworn into office in December of 2019, one of my duties was to be on the Friends of Lake Jessup Committee. And on that committee are Mr. Jeffrey Abbott Blair and Mr. Robert King, who took it upon themselves to give me a tour of the lake and to let me know what was going on and what they, for so many years, have been trying to do, and that's clean up Lake Jessup. Jeffrey Abbott Blair has put so much time into this. I am so proud of what he has done, and he was not able to come today. And so that's one of the reasons I'm here to just say I'm excited at this $350,000 startup. It will start a process. It will that Mr. King and Mr. Blair have been working on for so long, and I'm just excited. To have this happen just 1.5 years into my tenure. And I'd like to thank you all. And again, this is a sincere thanks, but we do need more monies to complete the project. But thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate you all.
Councilwoman, I will tell you that we all understand that $350,000 is a drop in the bucket when it comes to Lake Jessup. There's a long way to go, but you got to start somewhere.
Yes.
And certainly with the shoreline protection, we're very excited about that and the ordinance to follow. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, ma'am.
Anything else? Anyone else in the audience that wish to speak before I take a motion on anything on the consent agenda? With that, is there any member of the commission that has anything that they would like to take separately?
Chairman, I think you have a hand raised on the...
I have a hand raised. Oh, good. Thank you very much. It was down there in the bottom. Didn't see it. Mr. Wilson, Gray Wilson, I see that you have your hand raised. Thank you, County Manager.
Yes. Hello. Good morning. I want to also include in my comments item 19 as well. I think I've known Robert King for half a lifetime, and the work that he's done on Lake Jessup is incredible, and I'm glad to see the county working on that grant. Gray Wilson, 1125 Broadgate Lane. I'm with the Friends of Wekiva River, and want to talk about item 17 real briefly. I want to thank Shannon Wetzel, George Woodring, to bring this grant opportunity to the Board of County Commissioners on the Wekiva Springshed Well Monitoring Grant. It is continued work, it's ongoing, and it's going to provide even more information on the nitrate levels and the phosphorus levels in groundwater. And it's just a continuing project, and we're very, very glad to see this in front of the commission. So just want to thank you very much for having that on the agenda, and continue, look forward to continue working with the board in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I don't want to jump the gun or take any thunder away from the report from Ms. Johnson, but also on the Little Wekiva, I believe that there's still a $500,000 in the budget that we have for the study for the Little Wekiva, which certainly we have asked for, and we appreciate very much from the legislature. Anyone else? Let me just make sure there's no other hands. Is there any other hands, Clint?
No, sir.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Zimbauer.
I was just going to comment on item 19. I was originally going to pull it, but I don't think we need to now that we've had discussion on it. I think we need to also recognize St. John's Water Management, as well as Army Corps, River Keepers. We've had them all in my office, since the lake in its entirety is in my district, that have worked together and are now communicating, which has not occurred in the past. We kicked off with then Senator Simmons in bringing much more awareness to the legislature. It was in one of our requests this year. We will continue to make that request, at least from my district, and continue to work with all those partners to hopefully find a solution after, half a century of wanting and needing to get this water body cleaned up. So I think we need to make sure we recognize those partners who are now at the table, willing to discuss and willing to work with us. So that's a good thing.
And a couple of other things that just need to be added. The St. John's River Water Management District also just gave a $425,000 grant for the Little Wekiva restoration project. And I will tell you that I can remember going way back into the 90s when I was still in the House of Representatives, that we were putting money forth for Lake Jessup and all of that entails. It's a long process. Nobody is suggesting that the $350,000 is going to clean the lake completely. Just to give you an example, we had to go and buy all the land around Lake Apopka just to start that process back in the early 2000s. So this is definitely, or late 1990s. So this is definitely a long-term project, but
no, correct. It's good. Even agreed with $350,000, but what's good now, it's on the radar every year of our legislatures. It's on the radar of all the entities that can bring assets to bear to continue moving forward for improved water quality for that lake. So at the end of the day, it may be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but we've got it started and moving forward. So that's a good thing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
If there's no objections, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items 5 through 27, excluding 22, as requested by staff.
Second.
Motion and seconded by
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
I do have a couple comments on items 7 and 25, but I don't want to pull them. I don't want to pull them.
Okay, I'll give you that chance. Motion and seconded. Discussion. Commissioner DeLore.
Okay. Item number 7, I don't believe it needs to be pulled, but we're approving these contracts quarterly, and this is the second quarter for the Sports Tourism Funding Agreement. I'd like to see in the future if we can do that annually, if the attorneys can look at that, and I think it would make the work a little bit less if we can do it annually instead of quarterly, since it's a contract we already have in place with Perfect Game. And then the other one was on 25, which has to do with Station 11. And again, I totally support the agenda item, but it'd be nice to have staff go back through and to see if there's anything that is COVID-related that caused this project to be late or additional cost, and to see if there's any COVID money from the feds that could compensate for that instead of the fire fund. So those are the two comments that I wanted to make. But I support the motion to approve both of those as well as the other ones.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve 5 through 27 minus 22. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, we are now on the number 28, the clerk's office.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 28 as presented here in the...
Second.
Motion and seconded. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number 29, Tricia Johnson, our Deputy County Manager, is going to give us a tourist forecast on this Tourist and Travel Week.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Tricia Johnson, Deputy County Manager. As you know, the Tourist Development Fund was the most significantly impacted of all county funds due to the pandemic, with a nearly 30% decrease in collections. In the midst of fiscal year 2021 budget preparations, the tourism team really had to react quickly. We reduced our budget by a third and brought the majority of our marketing services in-house, a decision that, I'll be honest with you, made me a little nervous, but I'm glad I listened to the team because, as you will see, it was the right one. I'm exceedingly proud of the work tourism has done, particularly over the last year in such unpredictable circumstances. Tourism committed to you a year ago to present a forecast a year post the onset of the pandemic, so that is what Guy Cunha and Danny Trossett will be doing today. But before we begin, we'd like to share a short promotional video with you that our in-house marketing team made. Thank you, Brian.
Great.
Good morning, Commissioners. Guy Cunha, Seminole County Tourism. I thought it'd be best for us to start and take a look at pre-pandemic. What were the Seminole County trends leading up to the pandemic? And as Commissioner Constantine alluded to, banner years, year over year. On the left here, you'll see the line graph for revenue per available room, or RevPAR. This is our demand indicator most closely associated with tourist development tax because it takes into account not only occupancy, but average daily rate as well. And then the bar graph to the right are our tourist development tax. And it's a very common theme, record setting. We had 5.8 million at our highest in tourist development tax, which equated to about 1.22 million room nights over an entire calendar year. Now, here's the key date to remember, February 2020. February 2020 had our highest demand in Seminole County history. Our market share was very balanced at this time. Our transient and group markets were about 5 percentage points away from each other. So demand was very balanced in allowing our county to reach record-setting year-over-year numbers. And what that equated to was a projection by Smith Travel Research of new hotel room, new supply in the pipeline of about 600 rooms. Then the pandemic struck. So, obvious numbers that we've spoken about, 28% decline in TDT, that 1.22 million rooms that we had, room nights, became 820,000. But we are seeing hope. And beginning February 2020, we actually start seeing demand returning at an exponential rate. So when we look at this line graph here, we see the red line is the forecast that Smith Travel Research conducted for us in April 2020 based on revenue per available room. The blue line are what we're actualizing now. So we are ahead of the forecast. And the largest variable, the brightest light at the end of the tunnel, is beginning February 2021, year over year, we actually have more rooms selling in Seminole County than pre-pandemic, at a time where there's many destinations that have seen decline in supply by 20% or more. Now, what has occurred? We've seen a large gap happen. Transient Drive market leisure has been the #1 market returning from a transient standpoint. But group, we basically, and this is the entire state and nation, lost the business travel. So sports has been now carrying the entire group market on its back, followed way behind by weddings and other smaller group markets as well. So SMERF for the record is social, military, education, religion, or fraternal. Those are the other small group markets that don't have large F&B. This has contributed to a K-shaped style recovery in our hotel types. So we're seeing select service and extended stay properties see an increase in demand numbers, but our full service properties that rely more on that business group travel seeing a stark difference in demand, we can say. So we look at our forecast. Smith Travel Research on the left, the bar graphs here show that it's going to be a multi-year recovery. It's not just going to be this year. And the line graph on the right speaks to the volatility that we can expect. Now, when we compare year-over-year pre-pandemic numbers to post-pandemic numbers, we're going to see a volatility of double and sometimes triple-digit fluctuations in occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, and so on and so forth. Now, what has that led to? The equation has changed. The game has changed. Yes, there is a pent-up demand. We are seeing a wave of travel. Florida as a state is one of, at times first, at times second, in the recovery in the drive markets throughout the entire nation. But we are also seeing increased competition like never before. It is no secret to all destinations that drive markets are what's leading your transient travel, and outdoor sporting events are what's going to carry your group. So we're seeing competition like we've never seen before in the past. Now, we're going to look here, that February 2020 date that was pointed out, here's the key to it. These are our tourist development, this table shows our tourist development tax over the fiscal years. When we look at fiscal year 19-20, we see that the first 5 months there, October to February, were record highs. Then the pandemic struck. And that led us to finalize at 4.2 million TDT. This fiscal year will be the trough because this fiscal year will be the first fiscal year where all 12 months have been affected by the pandemic. So that 3.35 TDT forecast there, that's the red line. So we know as of today we are trending well above that 3.35. So, with us understanding that that was going to be the trough, we knew we had to re-strategize. We had to do more with less. With that, we decided that content development should be brought in-house, social media, and public relations were our 3 large services that we believed should have some change to it. And what we're looking at here, this table is showing the results of that strategy change. Now, we, again, re-strategize our posting frequency. We created social media voices that are supposed to sound like locals speaking to visitors on what to do in Seminole County instead of a more corporate strategy. And here we see the results of that change from January 1st till the end of March. We see that we have a 40% increase across our audience. We see engagement has increased by triple digits, and we also see that our messages have also increased by over 75%. So we are posting more, and we are accomplishing that strategy of doing more with less. And with that, I pass it over to Danny to speak on sports.
Guy, can I just, Mr. Chairman, that last slide, I know you don't necessarily want to pat yourself on the back or your team on the back, but I'm going to do it because this is remarkable. And I don't know how many of my fellow commissioners follow us on Instagram and other forms of social media, but I'm a big fan. And I cannot tell you how unbelievably professional the work has been that you all are putting out. It is not only on par and better, I would say, than some of the professionals out there, but it has exceeded expectations in terms of results, and that can't be understated. And I know you aren't going to say that, but I am because it's really fantastic. So congratulations to the whole team.
I'm humbled, and thank you, Commissioner. I know the commissioners have expressed the same sentiment. I'll say this, Karen Applin, Jessica Pickering, our team that really handles and created the voices they do a phenomenal job. I mean, I can tell you that we do get calls from other destinations inquiring about their availability, and we're like, no. They're staying with us.
They're busy.
We legitimately, I can tell you this, working, again, in South Florida and coming up to Central Florida and working in various counties and from amateur level sports to pro level sports, you see teams and you see a program and the difference there, the drop off in standard. And what we have here is a program. We've established a program, and it's a standard of excellence that I can say I have not been a part of, where it's expected for us to see the growth. You know, we are continuing to see these double-digit growths. So thank you, commissioners, for trusting in us, and I appreciate the comments.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Dillard.
Keith, can you go back to that slide? It's got the blue line and the red line. Right there. That's pretty significant. Most people don't realize that just to follow what the projections are, you're a winner. To go above what those projections are, you're hitting out of the park every day. And your whole entire team, as Commissioner Lockhart stated, needs to be commended. And that's what we should be celebrating and are celebrating. So, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Chairman, Commissioners, Danny Trossett with Seminole County Sports Tourism. I figured I'd start it off by just a picture. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And on May 2016, this is where the dream became a reality for Seminole County Sports Tourism. The sports complex, the state-of-the-art 15-field facility, really became a game changer for us. You know, we were always on the map, but this facility put Seminole County on the forefront in the entire country as one of the best youth sports complexes in the country. So this is something to be very, very proud of. We fast forward 1 year later, May of 2017, we redesigned Soldiers Creek Park. And I commend this county and our leadership team for doing the research and listening to our customers, because what we found is that the girls fast pitch community did not have a facility to truly call their own. And this facility is spec'd out as a 6-field NCAA regulation size fields for girls fast pitch softball. And we hit it out of the park with this one. This facility runs over 30 events a year, everything from youth softball all the way to collegiate softball. So we are very, very proud of the performance of this venue as well. Just to share some of the numbers with the sports complex, obviously, as you can see, we opened in 15-16, we opened in May, so that was a partial year. We did 27 events that generated over 6,400 hotel rooms and over $13 million in economic impact. As you can see in 16-17, and you may recall, in 2013, before we decided to build the sports complex, we hired a company called Sports and Properties that conducted a pro forma and gave us a 5-year forecast of what the sports complex would produce in terms of room nights, economic impact, et cetera. And I'm happy to share that in our first fiscal year in 16-17, we outperformed the pro forma's year 3 projections. We hosted 55 events that year that generated 11,000 hotel rooms and over $18 million in economic impact. So in 4.5 years, we've done over 246 events, 76,000 hotel rooms, and over $95 million in economic impact. Total number of visitors for those 4.5 years, as you can see, is over 580,000 visitors that have come to the sports complex to participate in an event or as a spectator for an event. The chart below, as you can see, is the sports complex projections for this year. 57 events, 4,000 teams, 200,000 visitors, 45,000 room nights, and $35 million in economic impact. and that is a significant increase, largely due to our preferred operator agreement with Perfect Game, which I'll be able to speak more of here in just a second. We also have other tremendous venues here in Seminole County. To the left lists those key marquee venues that are also a significant driver of events and sports tourism. To the right are some examples of some of those larger events. As we all know, ECNL, that utilizes the soccer complex as well as Sylvan Lake Park. FHSAA High School Tennis Championship, and as a matter of fact, we're hosting that right now. So if you get an opportunity, San Lando Park, Sylvan Lake Park, Redbug Lake Park, we're hosting the best of the best high school tennis championships right here in Seminole County this entire week. We also host the NCAA Division II Men's and National Tennis Championships in various softball tournaments, ranging from USSSA State Softball Championships. Next week, we have in partnership with Seminole State College, we're hosting the Junior College State Softball Championships at Soldiers Creek Park. Also, several other softball and soccer events as well. And I want to make sure that I take the opportunity to thank our Leisure Services Department and our Parks and Recreation team, because without them, these events do not happen. We are not successful. It really, truly is a total team effort. When event organizers get on site, the Parks and Rec team does everything to exceed the expectation of the event organizer and making sure that we do the little things to put on a great experience for not only the participants, but for the spectators as well. So I just want to make sure that I extend our gratitude from the sports tourism team to Leisure Services, because it truly is a total team effort. So the next slide just really takes into consideration all other venues. So basically that impact consists of all the venues that we just spoke of on the previous slide outside of the sports complex. So as you can see, in 4 years, we've done over 162 events that have generated over 60,000 hotel rooms, over $56 million in economic impact at those venues. Our projections for this fiscal year: below 52 events, 19,000 hotel rooms, over $17 million in economic impact. This slide really just kind of ties it together, showing you what our 1920 actuals were at the sports complex, as well as all other venues. And remember, 1920, we were impacted by COVID. Our facilities shut down basically when COVID hit in March, and we did not reopen until the third weekend in June. So we did have some canceled events over 1920. But the true, obviously, we're very excited on our 2021 projections. As you can see, I mean, going from total 109 events, over 64,000 hotel rooms, $52 million in economic impact. And this is largely due to, like I mentioned before, to our preferred operator agreement with Perfect Game. And something it's important to note, our 2021 projections, we are still operating under COVID. There are teams that are still not comfortable with traveling. So these projections are our projections. The good news is that we've had a very strong first quarter. Some really, really tremendous events that have produced some great numbers. I think the key for us is going to see how the summer goes. The summer is when a lot of our larger events with Perfect Game, some of the out-of-state travel that we're expecting and anticipating are going to take place. So this summer is going to really tell us, obviously, give us a much better idea on how we perform based upon our projections. The update with Perfect Game, this board, we have a preferred operator agreement, which started January 1st, 2021. We have 40 scheduled events with Perfect Game this year at the sports complex. The projected impact of those events: 113,000 visitors, over $27.5 million in economic impact. So far, between January and March, we've hosted 4 events that have generated over 2,100 hotel rooms, $2.3 million in economic impact. And with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions, Commissioner Delory?
I have a question. First of all, that video was outstanding. I really enjoyed it. But I had a quick question about the video. There was a gentleman on the video with a fly rod. Was that John Cade? And he's a world-renowned fly fisherman. He lives in a black hammock. I didn't know if you were able to get him on video.
I believe so. That was actually Karen that was on site as talent and managing the shoot. I can confirm with her.
I'm just curious because he is world-renowned.
Yeah.
I mean, he is amazing. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. He lives in a black hammock.
Yes, I believe so. I believe it's him, but I can confirm.
I just caught a glimpse of him. I wasn't too sure. I would like for you, both of you to talk about EC&L and about the market share. How are we doing with the market share? Because I've heard from other counties that, even in your statement, that people going after sports tourism because of the drive market, and I'd like to have a little more conversation about that.
Sure. The sports tourism market is extremely competitive. As Guy mentioned, right now, that is the only group business that's driving hotel rooms, into our hotels. So other destinations are getting competitive. They're doubling down on sports tourism, looking at building new venues. I think it's critical for us to make sure that we continue to reinvest into our crown jewel, right? The sports complex, Soldiers Creek Park, as well as all of our other existing venues, so that we remain competitive, because other venues will be built, will be developed. In terms of EC&L, we're going on an 11-plus year partnership with EC&L. We're very, very happy with that partnership. They have expanded tremendously. So there is a possibility where they may outgrow us based upon the number of fields that we have available. Basically, Sylvan Lake Park, Seminole Soccer gives us 17 full-size soccer fields. They're using all 17 fields for both events. So that is something that we are constantly looking at, and we can use overflow facilities like Central Winds Park and various facilities around the county. But in a perfect world, groups like EC&L, they like to be centrally located at 1 to 2 venues at most.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner.
So I'd love to tag team on what Commissioner Delary just talked about.
The fly rod or the...
No, no.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure.
I'm just having fun.
Yeah, I know, it's okay. I'm not sure what to do with that, frankly. So the crown jewel of our business here in the sports tourism business is that facility. And it is so critical to me that we do everything that we can within reason to make sure that it is not only kept up to date, but that we continue to be at the tip of the spear in terms of its, get someone out there blowing, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So I'm going to bring up food because it's almost lunchtime and I'm hungry, but food is so critical at these venues, the quality of the food and the value of the food. And I know that that's something that we've kind of struggled with in getting the health department to work with us on building a kitchen facility. And I know I'm talking to you because you're at the podium, but I'm talking to the guys sitting on the back row, because I know that this isn't totally in your wheelhouse. But anything that I can do to help encourage us to invest in putting a facility there that allows us to put out the type of quality food that travel ball parents expect is really important, because it's the whole experience, right? It's not just whether or not my kid I could sit under a shade structure, which is great while my kid's playing ball, but it's when I went to the concession stand and I had to feed an entire, team full of kids, what was there to feed them, and then did I have to eat it too? Do I want to eat it too? Totally different attitude. So I see heads nodding. So just know that I'm on your team, pun intended, in terms of getting our food and beverage up to par out there.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
And I'm sure I just offended whoever the person is doing food and beverage, and I didn't mean to do that, but it is what it is.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
To Commissioner Lockhart's point, I don't know that the government wants to get into the food services or what we're discussing there, but I will share that.
Well, let me clarify it then. I wasn't discussing government doing the food. I was discussing us having a facility that was of the quality that someone could do the food, because we don't even have a kitchen out there right now.
Got it. So awareness, Chick-fil-A will be coming into the Lake Mary Boulevard area and has put some interest in that general area that I think will be a benefit to the sports complex. There are several others that have issued interest memorandums to the property owners of bringing restaurant and food services in and around that area, which I would say is going to benefit the tourism in its totality. We also know that we've been contacted whether it ever gets done or not, about hoteliers who want to build hotels in that general area, which I suspect some of those will come with food service as well, which will also help benefit our sports complex, because currently we have to have people stay either all on the I-4 corridor in Lake Mary, Sanford, and so on and so forth. And the more services we get in and around that airport, sports complex, I think the food thing will eventually take care of itself as far as what's available. And that may be a partnership. It may be something we want to look at as economic development if we have a need there. But I'd like to learn more about what we may or may not do with a kitchen facility at that park.
Take a poll of moms who have kids at ball fields. They don't all want to have to go run to Chick-fil-A because they don't want to miss the next game that's starting up.
Okay, is there anything else? If not, I just want to say that, Guy, your enthusiasm is infectious, and we appreciate that very much, and it shows in not only your presentations here, but at the Tourist Development Commission. And we're extremely proud of how hard you all are working to maintain, and try to, improve on our numbers here. So it's been a difficult time, and you guys are doing great. Thank you, Tricia, also. We appreciate it very much. Is there anybody else that has anything on this item? Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you.
The next item is going to be the presentation on the English Estates sidewalk update. And this is our continuing saga here. I think we're looking forward to a decision potentially today, hopefully today. So with that, Mr. Taylor.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Matt Taylor. I'm with Atkins, and I'm presenting the English Estates Sidewalk Project. This is the update to what we previously presented to you. Some of this will be a repeat, so I'll go through that quickly in the interest of time, and I'll spend a little more time on what's new within this presentation. This doesn't work?
Sir, about how long is your presentation, just so I know?
I can make it as long as you want.
No, that's not the point. I want to know if the commissioners can hold their questions until the end. The last couple of times we've gotten in the middle of it, we stopped, we started asking a lot of questions, it got off the ball. So let's just let you do your presentation.
Okay.
And then keep the questions until the end, okay? Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Very good, thank you. So this will be our agenda today. We'll start with project history. I'll spend a little more time talking about the justification study and the concept plan that you asked for at our last presentation, and then finally, steps for moving forward. Moving on. So again, this project reflects the county's commitment to adding and improving pedestrian facilities. And the English Estates subdivision was identified as a potential project in 2014. There's a project history, but I'll skip this. I'll go straight to the recent timeline on the next slide. So this is the recent timeline. Going back to December of 2020, we submitted a draft sidewalk justification study. In January through February, we developed a project website. It was activated, and the public input question period was live. On January 28th, we conducted a virtual public meeting, and we solicited public input and questions. In February, we came to you to make this presentation, asked for your input, and you requested concept plans, which we'll go through today. In March of this year, we submitted the final justification study. On March 11th, we completed the concept plans and submitted those to the county. And then, of course, today here, we're presenting our updates to you and requesting input for you for the direction of the project. So a lot of this is repeat from last time, so again, I'll just go very quickly through this. The study was conducted to further evaluate the feasibility of providing sidewalks throughout the neighborhood. Traffic data was collected, another field review was conducted, the information was analyzed, criteria to evaluate proposed sidewalks was developed, and based on the findings, we made recommendations for sidewalks. Next. This is the overall view of the neighborhood. It was separated up into 3 different phases, but it's roughly Glastonbury on the west, Winston on the east, Derbyshire on the north, and I'm sorry, the road on the north is Carrollton Road on the north. Next. So this map depicts the general land uses of the areas. Residential areas are typically considered as trip generators, with commercial areas being trip attractors. Community facilities, including schools, parks, and bus stops, are also shown here. Next. Okay. This just shows where we collected traffic data and the 24-hour counts that were collected at each of these locations. Next. Also at the same locations, we collected average vehicle speeds. This shows the traffic data and the types of crash data that was collected, where those crash data incidents occurred, and what types of incidents they were. Okay, this map shows basically a field review of potential conflicts. We classified conflicts as either minor or major, and conflicts that would present a challenge to aligning a sidewalk along that area. Overlaid that with the traffic data. That's what this map shows. And finally, we took all that information, we analyzed it, and we provided recommendations for which corridors would be best served by sidewalks and which side of the road preliminarily would be best suited for those sidewalks. In addition, on this map, we show public input that was received, either positive, negative, or neutral, and located them on that map. This is a summary of the public involvement that was done between January and February of this year. We sent over 416 newsletters to stakeholders throughout the neighborhood. We held a project website. We conducted a virtual Zoom meeting. We responded to individual emails that were received to the county, to the website, and we provided responses to all those. All of the minutes to the public meetings and all the responses that were provided to homeowners were included in the final justification study. And go back, I'm sorry, more. And since this data was provided on this sheet, the county has received 2 additional emails of support from residents living on the corridor or on the project. Okay, next. So now these are the concept plans that were developed between Atkins and the county and submitted for your review. I'll just go through them. If you go to the next page. This is a typical section of what the sidewalk would look like relative to the existing road. Typically, there's a 3-foot side buffer between the road and the proposed sidewalk. The sidewalk is a standard 5-foot width when it's offset from the road like this. And all the improvements that are going to be made are within the existing county right-of-way. So the next 10, 12 sheets or so are really just it's a concept plan view aerial showing the existing road, all of the houses that are there. They're oriented along each of the proposed corridors. So there's a location map on each of the sheet. Because this neighborhood is a grid system, it shows you kind of where you are on the project so we don't get lost. This first couple of sheets is Glastonbury Road, and I was planning to go through all of the conflicts with trees. I know that was a primary concern from both residents and from the commissioners. We want to talk about each of the trees. So we have a proposed alignment, and I wanted to show each of the trees that could potentially be impacted by this project. So if you can see that, you're starting on the left side. In this corridor, this is about a block long. There's one sable palm tree that's going to be removed. At each of these locations, you'll see throughout this plan set, there's a number that corresponds to a picture of that tree, and that's included in the back of the concept plans. So you can see exactly the size of the tree and what will be affected. So on this page, there's just the one on the left side. And as we move north along Glastonbury, near the intersection of Sunderland, there's 3 crepe myrtle trees that'll need to be removed. Again, these are all trees that are located within the county's right-of-way. Moving further north, just north of Hunterfield Road, there is a sable palm tree. There's a small piece of sidewalk that's going to be, or shrubs near the sidewalk that's going to be removed along Hunterfield there. And then, again, moving to the north, just before we tie into the existing sidewalk north of Hunterfield, there are some existing shrubs to be removed. Moving on, now we're on Hunterfield Road, where we are east of Oxford, so starting at Glastonbury, now moving to the west. To orient you, the north is to the top of the page. But there are some shrubs, and there's shrubs to be removed, but a palm tree is just going to be trimmed to provide the 7-foot clearance to walk underneath it. The sidewalk has been realigned slightly around the tree in order to save the tree. Moving on, there are 2 palm trees to be removed, and the palm trees can be relocated at the owner's request. We can coordinate with that homeowner to relocate those palm trees somewhere else. Moving on, now we're close to the intersection of Oxford Road. There's no tree conflicts on this page. And then finally, at the intersection with Oxford, again, no impacts there. Moving across Oxford Road, still on Hunterfield, in that first alignment, there's no impacts. On the second page, as we approach Manchester, there are some trees that are close to the sidewalk. We're just going to trim those to raise that canopy up a little bit to provide the clearance above the sidewalk. And then some existing shrubs to be removed there. Moving on, now we're east of Manchester. There are some existing shrubs and landscape in that area that'll need to be removed. And an existing small palm within the sidewalk work area that'll have to, there's an existing concrete curb and a small palm within that work area to be removed. There's an existing sable palm that can remain. Continuing east, now we're near the intersection at Winston Road. There is some existing shrubs around this driveway that will need to be removed. And then right at the intersection, in that quadrant, there's a large tree that can remain. It may need to be trimmed again to raise the canopy, and there are some newly planted shrubs that will need to be removed right at the intersection. Okay, now we're on to Winston Road, and now we're starting at Derbyshire. We're going to work our way north. So this is an area where there's a steep slope going from the property down to the road. So we're trying to align the sidewalk to meet all ADA requirements. There is a red maple tree that needs to be removed at the corner. Moving forward, there's another red maple that needs to be removed. Continuing north, as we cross Falmouth, there are existing crepe myrtle trees that need to be removed and some podocarpus trees that need to be removed. Continuing up near Sunderland Road, there are no tree impacts. And now I've rotated the alignment now. North is facing to the right, just trying to keep you guessing here. But as we cross Worthington, there are no tree impacts. But you will notice that on some of these, we have realigned the sidewalk to go around an existing utility pole. Continuing north of Markingham Road, again, no tree impacts. And again, we've realigned it to avoid some existing utility light poles. On this page, there's not a red X, but there are a couple of trees that need to be trimmed just to elevate the canopy. The magnolia there near Markingham, and then some small sable palms right at where the driveway meets the road that'll need to be removed. Okay, and then continue on up to north of Carrollton. No tree impacts on that road. And then at this point, north of Carrollton, we're tying into the existing sidewalk south of Castlewood.
Great.
And then if you would like, you skip past the pictures. The pictures are there for your review. Okay, now move on to the next steps. Today is the day we're presenting these changes in the concept plans to you, and we're requesting your input and direction for the future of the project based on these recommendations and the concept plans presented. And I'll again just note that Oxford Road, the county has recently executed a work order to start work on Oxford Road, and that's to provide sidewalk and drainage improvements on Oxford and to evaluate providing a new sidewalk on the east side. And that work is beginning now. And that is all I have
Mr. Taylor.
for today.
Thank you very much. Is there any, now that we've allowed him to finish his program, is there any questions? Commissioner?
So I noticed that we are going around utility poles. but we're not going around trees.
We did try to go around trees. If there's a large tree, we did try to go around it. In some cases, we are realigning to go around a tree.
Okay.
If it meant just trimming the tree up, we did try to do that. In most of the cases of the tree was in direct alignment, and it could not go around. There was not enough room to put the sidewalk on either side of the
Okay.
tree.
But where we could, we did.
Yes.
Okay. My other question is about moving forward, just for a minute, since we talked about what's happening with Oxford Road. I hope that we're also looking at traffic calming and potential safety measures on that stretch, not just sidewalks. I know a raised sidewalk, a raised crosswalk has been discussed going over to the elementary school, and I know folks in engineering probably makes their palms sweat every time I bring this up, but I'd like to at least see that it's being discussed, even if the recommendation is that you don't recommend it. I would hope that it's on the table for discussion. Is it?
Yes, that is part of the Oxford Road study to look at,
Okay.
you talk about Oxford Road specifically?
Yes.
Yes, that is part of the Oxford Road scope to working with Seminole County Traffic on traffic calming devices through there.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
I don't know if you all have, I'd like to know cost analysis of where we're at now with the additional study monies and migrating around and meandering around and moving trees and et cetera, as compared to what was originally presented. Is there any idea of what kind of costs are involved from staff?
In terms of just the study, the additional study that was done?
Well, additional study and the actual construction costs of going around the trees and poles and so forth. If you know, if you don't.
Yeah, I don't have a number off the top of my head. If you have something you'd like to add to that.
For the record, John Judge, Public Work Director, County Engineer. In typical subdivision already built out like that, we expected the type of construction to go around trees. And we do those trees is mostly they're small trees and they are shrub. The construction of that type of work, we do have continued contract for unit price of a certain contractor, and that's what we comply with. We have not done a specific study to see the difference with a straight sidewalk or go around tree, sidewalk going around tree. We have not done specific for each, for that.
Okay. Maybe I was confused about our earlier presentations, but I thought the main reason that we're here is because the original plan and the original goal that was proposed for this area impacted trees and other infrastructure that was of concern to, amenities concern to the citizens. But I think what I just heard is our expectation is when we do this, we're going to be going around trees anyway. Is that?
Right. We try to go, whether the resident requested or not, we try to save every tree we can when we design a sidewalk or any type of improvement on the roadway. We do that. And the purpose of this to show you exactly what shrub and what tree specifically on that project has been impacted.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think last time around we had actually identified that for you. So this is to give you and the community an idea of where we're going around them and where we're not able to.
Which is specifically, which tree is it on that specific project?
And we verified, I know there was discussion about drain fields and these, have we verified there's not going to be an impact to a drain field, number one, and number two, have we verified there are no drain fields in the right-of-way of the county?
Yeah, there is no drain field in the right-of-way of the county, first we know.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, come on.
Commissioner Lockhart?
From the original proposal to this proposal, we've not just confirmed that we're going around trees, but we've also reduced the amount of sidewalk to be laid. Is that correct?
What's the second part?
We've lessened the amount of sidewalk to be laid from the first proposal to now.
Yeah, no, the last meeting, we recommended those 3 streets from the entire,
From the original. The original plan was how many streets?
For the entire community.
Right.
Okay?
Right, okay.
Last meeting, we recommended those 3.
Right.
You requested to see what's the impact.
Right.
This meeting here show you exactly what tree, what shrub will be impacted on those 3 streets only.
Right, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hurd.
So by rough count, the number of large canopy trees that are coming down is not as large as one would have thought. Fair statement?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
And so we're losing crepe myrtles, a lot of those, and a lot of shrubs, but not canopy trees. 2 red maples is what I heard as I was tracking through and doing a tick mark.
Yes, you're right.
The community feedback from the citizens, was that before we knew the impact to the trees or after we knew the impact to the trees?
Can you say that?
So the red and the green dots of I'm for it, or I'm against it, or I'm a yellow, I'm neutral. Was that input received prior to knowledge of which trees would be impacted or after knowledge?
I can speak to that. Okay. Within the public involvement portion, we didn't specifically address trees. We said that anything within the right-of-way may need to be removed. We kind of expected that homeowners would know exactly what's up against the road within that right-of-way piece to know what their large trees were and where their smaller shrubs and crepe myrtle trees were. But I did not specifically address the types of trees to be removed in the initial public involvement phase, but they would have commented on it.
It was before the analysis you got today.
Got it.
You have another question?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
I don't know if you can pull up the map again for us, but on page 8, which is the overview map in the presentation, on Hunter Field, oh boy, sorry, all the way back to the beginning.
Page
8. Well, it's
It's PDF page 8.
page 678 in the agenda.
That isn't going to help.
That one then.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, and it's really hard to see. On Hunter Field, which connects out to Oxford, it's the street that's the farthest north in the purple. Can you point out for us where the traffic counter was placed?
Yes, there were a couple. Let me, if you actually go to the next page, keep going. Okay.
There you go.
This map shows where the traffic counters were placed on Hunter Field.
Okay, so there was one on Hunter Field.
Yes,
And it was placed right at the entrance of Hunter Field,
yes.
but right before the parcel where the water tower is, where there's construction being done.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so if the count for Hunter Field is based on everyone that comes in that entrance, it doesn't mean that everyone that came in that entrance went down Hunter Field, and it also means that it captured construction traffic.
I don't know the timing of the construction vehicle traffic with when the counter was there. We have the dates when the traffic counter was there. I don't know the dates of the traffic, the construction traffic. I don't know that.
Okay. Is it safe to assume that not everybody who turned down Hunter Field and tripped that counter continued all the way down Hunter Field?
That's correct. We intentionally placed it there so we would capture the maximum amount of traffic that would be using Hunter Field. We do recognize that some of the traffic comes up some of those other side roads. I think it's Stratford and Sunderland. They use Stratford to access Hunter Field, turn left to access Oxford. We do know that collects some of those residents onto Hunter Field, and not everyone that comes into Hunter Field there continues all the way down Hunter Field to Glastonbury. Yes, the intent was to try to capture the maximum traffic, to be honest. We know that the traffic west of Stratford is going to be slightly less than what was captured right at Hunter Field.
Okay. I just think that it's important that we recognize that that was, if the intent was to maximize it and not really show a true reflection of the traffic on Hunter Field, that's probably not great.
Well, I think that's a valid argument. You may have, maybe you have somebody on that street that has new residents, or one of the rentals on that street, maybe there's 3 people living there with more cars and more Amazon deliveries, or Christmas time with people coming and going. I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, how we can do a traffic count that eliminates that abnormal or unusual traffic during a period. Obviously, during the summer months when the children are out of school, my guess would be there's probably more traffic on that road than the November 4th or 5th date. So I don't know whether, I'm sure are you using standard engineering accepted practices when you do these counts with some algorithm figured into?
Yes.
Hey, we know at certain times of the year their traffic count's going to be higher, and et cetera, or?
Yes, we like I said, we intentionally placed it there so we capture the maximum traffic, so we would know where it was and we would know which corridors would be best served by sidewalks. Because even though it is, slightly higher there is that traffic on that road at that time.
So it's about where you place it, not an algorithm that's being used for it. It's about the placement.
These are actual counts. It's not based on a projection or anything like
Right.
that. These are actual 2 counts.
And if you put it further down the road, it may have been less because
Put it
it
in a
wasn't at the
location that's
major.
going to give you a different reading. That's exactly
that's
correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody understand that?
So maybe my better question would have been, what margin of error do you put in your counting with your actual count of expectation for local deliveries that are periodic? Any summer counts versus actual counts versus holiday counts, et cetera, et cetera? I know when you design roads, there is a algorithm in there on, hey, this is what the traffic count is now, but we know there's peak times and non-peak times.
For the purposes of this study, we just wanted the actual traffic counts. I think what you're referring to might come into play more if you were trying to determine the number of traffic lanes on a road. But for our purposes here, we wanted the actual traffic counts, and we didn't make any sort of adjustments, seasonal or otherwise.
So if there were a lot of traffic from construction that was measured during this time, how does that impact your outcome?
It still really gives us the outcome we were trying to capture. We still wanted to know what the maximum traffic was there. So understanding, to your point, if there was construction traffic, then that's probably temporary. It's not going to be there forever.
Right.
There were other factors that determined, that came into play when we were determining our recommended corridors for sidewalks. Traffic was just one of them. Crashes was just one of them. Access to existing sidewalk corridors was a factor too. So all of these factors came into play. So if the traffic, again, on this corridor was even less than what was counted, it would not necessarily have eliminated it from consideration for proposed sidewalk.
Okay.
But increased traffic would have prompted another corridor for inclusion on recommendations for sidewalks.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
Further questions? I just have one. I did hear that a number of places you said that you were accommodating the homeowners or trying to accommodate the homeowners when it came to relocating the various trees. There were a couple of, are we providing that to all, other than the shrubs? Are we providing that to all the homeowners or just to ones, the palms?
Yes, that consideration can be provided to all homeowners. Same with light posts, any other personal items that are within the right-of-way that need to be relocated, those can be relocated instead of removed if the...
Like the red myrtles?
I'm sorry?
Like the red myrtles?
Yeah. The red maples are...
Maples, I'm sorry.
The red maples are probably too large to relocate, probably cost prohibitive to relocate. But if we could ask the question to the homeowner.
And are those red maples or actual sweet gums?
They were identified by an arborist as a red maple.
Okay.
I'm not an arborist.
Okay, with that, I see no other questions. Commissioner Lockhart, it's your district.
Yeah. I think you've done a great job of trying to pare this down from where it was. And I think a community that's existing, certainly you're going to have folks like we have had in this neighborhood have very differing opinions. You know, what did you buy in expecting and what did you buy in hoping, right? Two different things. So I'm going to support the project as it is with the changes that have been made, and hope that you will continue to work with the neighbors as best you can to minimize impacts. One of the concerns that I do have is what this is going to do to on-street parking. Noticed in one of the pictures, you've got a vehicle parked where there's going to be a sidewalk. And we already know that there are incidences of parked cars being hit in the streets. So I'm not sure how to fix that problem, and so I would imagine that we would be working closely with code enforcement in the sheriff's office to communicate to these neighbors what the impacts will be of their ability to park their vehicles now, because many of them will lose space in their driveways, and that's, I know, not going to be appreciated. So, so my thoughts.
So on that question,
Hold on for 1 second. Was that a motion?
I don't think
You
we're
said
making a
support.
motion. This is a presentation, and we're giving direction,
Yeah, well,
correct?
I just wanted to make sure. Hold on 1 second. Madam County Manager, do we need a motion today?
We don't have to have a motion, but we would like clear direction from the board that there is a consensus of support. If the motion is the way to do that, that's fine, but if we can get something that clearly indicates support to do something one way or another, that's really what we're looking for today. So however you want to manifest that, it's up to the board.
So the district commissioner has made a suggestion that she supports it along with some, along with the recommendations that are made. I would like to see them go to the neighbors on all the trees, even if those trees may be too prohibitive. We should ask. We should do the ask. Commissioner Zimbauer?
That's what following up on what both commissioners have said, I think there needs to be clear understanding with property owners on what trees, if any, are going to be removed, impacted, trimmed, so at least that's handled. There does need to be some kind of communication, I think, on the parking issue. We see it all over the county in some of the cities where people were parking and blocking the sidewalk because maybe that's where they used to park, and helping the community understand that that's actually a right-of-way. It's an ingress, egress for the property, but that is in the county right-of-way. So some kind of communication, helping understand if, by example, their current driveway and they're parking 2 or 3 deep and they've got a car that's literally a few feet from the street now, then obviously when the sidewalk goes in, that's going to go where a car's parked. So I think maybe just some kind of communication. We've identified the parcels. Maybe you can send out a letter or something saying, hey, these are this, but identify specifically what trees may impact which parcels and directly have that conversation.
And Commissioner, one of the things that I found, because I've had a lot of sidewalk projects in my district recently, is that the staff and/or the company that is hired to do this goes out of their way to the point that some people, once they think that their land goes all the way or their property goes all the way to the road,
right,
it's theirs.
Right.
I mean,
of course,
regardless of what happens and regardless whether it's in the right of way. But one of the things they did, they have gone well beyond, making sure that everybody understands that. And I would assume that this would be, and I hate to say assume, but I would expect that this would be the same here in moving forward, because that is one thing that I was impressed with. Citizens would be upset, but they tried to accommodate everything, including in some cases making the sidewalks smaller when they did that. But they were always there to address the citizens' needs and concerns. So of course, that would be another expectation that I would have, and I think we all should have, in doing this project.
No, I understood, and so I've driven that corridor, and there are a lot of properties where the vehicles are stacked almost to the road when they're parked, and I'm talking 10, 11 o'clock at night. So that tells me, more likely than not, those are people who are living in that home. So now when the sidewalk goes there, that vehicle is going to be blocking the sidewalk, and they may not know that, and then we're going to be having citizens calling, going, hey, my car's parked at the sidewalk, or the sheriff's going to go out and write some kind of ticket or warning or something. I just think we need to make sure we communicate, because there may be people that have to make arrangements for, I don't know, wider driveway or parking in the grass of their yard. I don't know what that may end up being, but.
And before we move on, there are two folks that are in the, cyberspace that wish to speak. So let's let them in. Clint? I see a Carol, M-O-R-R. I don't
Derek
have any
Taylor.
further.
We've got Mr. Taylor up first.
I'm sorry?
Derek Taylor. Mr. Taylor teed up first.
That's me.
Oh, no, Derek Taylor.
Oh,
There was a
that's
Derek
funny.
Taylor. Not Matt Taylor, Derek Taylor.
Whoever's, wishes to come first, that's up to you, Clint. Let's get them in there.
There's Mr. Taylor.
There's Mr. Taylor.
Hi, guys. Sorry about that. No, I appreciate it. Just wanted to jump in real fast and say thank you.
Name and address for the record. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Derek Taylor, 2353 Sunderland Road.
Go right ahead, sir.
So I just wanted to say thank you again for the deeper dive in really trying to study this. I think Commissioner Lockhart already brought up one of the things that I wanted to just question and make sure that as the two sidewalks from the east and west are tying into Oxford, obviously that intersection there is on an S-curve, which has the previously identified condition of having a curbless location on that curve. So just making sure that as the Oxford Road goes through, again, just concerned that measures are taken there where those pedestrians are intersecting and then convening to go up and down Oxford with, I don't know, flashing pedestrian signalization as a warning, or the raised crosswalk that was mentioned, but just making sure that that was also being looked at as where those two meet. And then a couple of the large trees, I don't know if maybe from an extra, confirming any of the really large trees that the sidewalk is skirting by, just making sure what the caliper size of those trees are, and whether or not the sidewalk, based on grading conditions, might in fact take out a good portion of the root system to be installed, that in reality it might actually impact the tree more than just visually. So those were my two comments, but I do thank you for taking the extra look and really trying to
Thank you, Mr.
nestle
Chair.
this into the community as cleanly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And I think that that's something that we did make sure that when they said that they were keeping the trees, that the root system would be assured that it was going to be sustainable.
Okay.
Thank you. Next.
Carol.
Clint?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to make
Name and
a
address for the
comment.
record, please.
Oh, Carol Morrow, 2175 Hunterfield Road.
Thank you, ma'am.
Caitlin.
Go ahead, please.
There was no discussion when we were talking about trees and things like that. I think a lot of people were less concerned about the trees. That seemed to take over in a lot of discussions online, et cetera. But a large part of that is the driveway. These houses were not built, to have a sidewalk. They started in the 60s, as you know, and have continued. And that's going to be a real problem. 8 feet off of a driveway is a lot of space. And as Commissioner Zembauer said, it's going to cause problems. And that is an impact that was, that's that's apart from trees and bushes and things like that. I think those are minimal impacts as opposed to the space and the size of the street and the number of cars that will wind up in the street. And the second thing is that if a counter had been placed on Stratford, they said there was no other place to put a counter. Well, there was. On Stratford, a car coming from Derbyshire towards Hunterfield would count. That counter would pick that up, and then it, of course, again, would pick it up at Hunterfield. And the same way going from Oxford Road down Hunterfield and turning left on Stratford. There are no houses, really, before that, the Stratford Street one, and then the tower and all that property. So there was a way to figure out a correct figure. 400, as I've stated many times, as you know, I've been in touch, 400 vehicles as an average is ridiculous. And I think that, I appreciate them trying to go around this and do that, but to me, the count was not accurate in our area, and we're going to lose a lot of driveways. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have a
Commissioner.
question. If the public is done, I have a question for staff.
I'm sorry?
I have a question for staff.
Please, go right ahead.
And I'm not too sure who to address the question to, so it's going to be a blatant question out there. So with the sidewalk going across the driveways, who's going to be responsible for the apron transition from the sidewalk to the street where the driveway is?
Included with the construction plans would be the driveway.
Apron?
I'm sorry?
So the county would be?
The county, from the back of the sidewalk to the street, the county would reconstruct all of that. To make sure it meets ADA grades and slopes, and that there's a new, we found a lot of broken driveways that need to be replaced, so that's all being replaced from the back of the sidewalk to the street by the county.
Okay. Next question would be, in your opinion, does this community truly warrant additional sidewalks from a safety standpoint because of the traffic volumes? You're the engineer.
Yeah, and that's a very broad question.
I know, that's why I'm asking you. It's subjective.
I believe it does.
Okay.
Commissioner Zimbauer? We have one more person that's in the...
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll wait on the resident or
Thank
the
you.
citizen, sure.
Clint?
Yes, sir. Sean is in the meeting.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
You talking to me, Sean? Not Clint. Sean Cable, 2165 Hunterfield Road, Maitland, Florida. I just have one question that wasn't laid out. What about people that have pavers in the location where the sidewalk's going to go in that apron? Are those going to be ripped up and a new apron put down?
We've done this on a previous Seminole County project where the pavers were replaced in kind. So we directed the contractor to remove the pavers and to put them back. The actual sidewalk portion of the driveway would be concrete to comply with ADA requirements, but that apron between the sidewalk or anything we touch behind the sidewalk would be replace pavers, and then in front of the sidewalk to the road would also be those same pavers.
All right, thank you. That was one question that people were asking me. Also, I'd just like to point out, the Florida state statute has some hazardous walking conditions for streets for the state of Florida. Hunterfield specifically does not fall into that because it's in a residential area that has little or no traffic, although the count was wrong, in my opinion, on the 406 cars. The volume of traffic is less than 180 per hour and has a posted speed limit of 30 miles an hour or less. So I don't see where the sidewalk is necessary in that area because it's not a hazardous walking condition, specifically for children walking to school.
That is a comment, correct? John?
That is a comment, but I'm just wondering how this is a justification study, so I'm just trying to figure out how that's justified when it's not a hazardous walking condition.
So the hazardous walking condition was one of the factors. It's not the only factor. Again, we're trying to provide connectivity to the existing sidewalks in the neighborhood, trying to provide connectivity to the school. Those are other factors as well.
Yeah, all the factors, but the numbers are wrong based on the location of those number collecting machines. So it's hard to justify, and the justification study is skewed. So I'm just wondering, how can we justify something when the numbers are wrong in that particular case? And I understand you're saying that there aren't, there's a whole bunch of different reasons for it, but every time we talk about the reasons, all the reasons are skewed. So the justification study seems skewed, so I don't see any justification for the sidewalks.
Okay.
That was a comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Clint?
No, sir. Carol has already had a chance to speak, and she has her hand back up.
So, are we done with?
Hold on. Just, Carol, very quickly, do you have anything else to add? We're not going to give you 3 minutes, just whatever, you have something else to add. Clint, go ahead. Hello?
Yes, sir. She's in. She just has to unmute.
Okay, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On what basis does the gentleman, I don't know his name, left corner, state the opinion that people are in favor of the sidewalks when they first came out, as Commissioner Lockhart knows, many people signed petitions in opposition. So I don't know why the opinion would be made that people are in favor.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am.
To the gentleman. What does he base that on?
Is that a question for me?
I think that was a question, a comment about the previous caller.
Yeah, that was about the previous caller.
No, it was about the gentleman who, somebody had asked him, do you feel that people are in favor of this? And he said yes.
No, I don't think that's what he said. Mr. Taylor was asked whether or not this was justifiable, I believe, from Commissioner Zimbauer, and he answered in the affirmative.
No, this was regarding the people in the neighborhood. His opinion was that people wanted the sidewalks.
I don't know that
I heard that.
Never heard that.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. We'll try to get to the bottom of your concern. Commissioner Zimbauer?
So I will support whatever the district commissioner desires to do for her district, but, I just got to say, staff, this board, we spent a lot of time on this issue. I mean, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and that's taxpayers' dollars. I've seen the sidewalk policy that exists. I think we're going to continue to run into this. A sidewalk in an established neighborhood is a no-win battle because you have the original people who live there who have come accustomed to the landscaping, the way things look, the quiet meandering roads and so forth. But then you have, as those original folks have raised their family, now moving to retirement, the younger folks are coming in to raise a young family, they want sidewalks. And that's not to say there aren't some older residents that would like a walking sidewalk. I just think we need to come up with, once and for all, go through the brain injuries and get a policy that has the data points that need to be checked off for every possible scenario that you could run into in putting sidewalks in an existing old neighborhood, which are the trees, the mailboxes, the driveways, the paver questions, all these things. So we have a policy and procedure in place so we all don't have to go through this. This is, I think, the third time we've had it on this dais, but we've also had it at work sessions, at least twice. So whether that's direction this board has to give to staff, all I'm saying is I want to rely on what the experts say should be done from a safety, a usability, and what's accepted practice, but we should have a modeling so that when we get ready to endeavor upon this, we have something to put in the hands of the residents with a checklist to go through, notification of everything that could be impacted, and then ultimately decide, if you have that model, whether it's worth putting sidewalks in or not. All I'm saying is I'll support whatever the district commissioner desires to do, but I think I'm not interested in going through this brain injury every time we go to put a sidewalk in a neighborhood.
Commissioner Hurd, then Commissioner Lockhart.
So I agree with the position that the district commissioner has done the most research with regard to this and involvement with the citizens, and I'll certainly take that advice. And I also agree with the notion that we, again, are at a process question, right? So there's at least one per meeting, I've learned that now. And this is the one. To be fair to staff and to the consultant, in our last discussions, we didn't bring up parking. So now parking is an issue, and it's clearly an issue because it was in the pictures, but why it wasn't in the discussion, I'm not sure. So we clearly need checklists so that we can eliminate some of this non-productive work. I'm not ready to declare brain injury yet, just for the record. But
Give yourself a couple years.
So I do agree with that. To clarify for the last caller, I believe I was the one that raised the question about citizens that are in favor or not in favor. There is a graphic that shows in favor, not in favor, and it is very clear, and so I only questioned the timing of it, and the answer was very clear as well. So I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner.
Well, I think, Commissioner Zembauer brings up a really good point, and thank you, Commissioner DeLaury, for asking the question of, is this needed?
Yep.
Based, and so.
If you allow me that opportunity, I'll go a little further.
Yeah, well, I think I'll definitely do that, but I want to say that my impression from the beginning of this is that there is an engineer somewhere who knows that manual, who is only bringing these forward because it is a safety issue. So that was my presumption from the beginning. Frankly, I think this whole thing is a big old fat pain for the people who live there, for staff, for us to go through these machinations. I am going to apologize for having made the assumption that the only reason this was being presented to us was because there was a need, and we had experts in the field saying these sidewalks are necessary in order for people to safely traverse through their neighborhood. So that may be a miscalculation on my part.
Can I just ask a question for that?
Okay, go ahead.
I think there's an addition to that sentence, so I just need to be corrected if that's wrong. It's traverse safely now and in the foreseeable future. So we're accommodating future growth, and we are growing like crazy.
But there's no growth in that neighborhood. It's built out.
But there's growth to traffic around. So that's the question that we need to ask, is how is it being defined? I saw a head nod there, so maybe there's an answer.
I know I know Commissioner DeLaury wanted to say something, and I don't want to jump ahead of him, but I can kind of explain how we got here whenever you're ready for me.
Why don't you do that, then Commissioner DeLaury, if he still wants to speak, and then Commissioner Zembauer.
So a number of years ago, and I don't remember the exact time frame, we had a consultant, I think it might have been Atkins, do a study of sidewalks and the sidewalk situation around the county. And so we have an analysis of at least parts of the county with respect to where sidewalks are needed and where sidewalks are not needed. And English Estates was one of the items. You may recall, we've been talking about this for a long time, but you may recall when we first started talking about this, we had that information out of that study that had looked at sidewalks all over the county. And this particular project was included in the 1 cent sales tax list. The sidewalks in English Estates was specifically listed, which is why why we started down this road, pardon the pun, to begin with, was because that was an enumerated project on the sales tax list, based on, and the folks that were putting the list together included it on that list based on the study that was done for sidewalk needs around the county. So it was looked at. I can get you the time frame. I don't remember off the top of my head when that was. But that's how we started the discussion about English Estates. The Public Works team took it on because it was an enumerated project in the sales tax list. And my understanding is it was put on that list because of the study that was done. And if I'm not right, somebody correct me, but that's how I think we got here with this project.
And we wanted them to push the sales tax projects.
Well, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
All that being said, I'll just finish with one comment. I think this idea of identifying issues in retrofitting sidewalks is a great idea, and I think it's a worthwhile thing to try to do, because I don't know how many other projects are out there that are like that. We can tell you, get that information for you, but I think it's a great idea to have sort of a list of issues that need to be addressed when we do retrofit.
I think those of us that have been involved in this all know that this has been probably the most difficult project of the sidewalks that we've gone through so far. Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's important to realize that this is an established community. I don't know the exact age of it, but it's a number of years old. People lived here for at least 1 or 2 generations. They traverse all those streets very safely now. I don't see a burning desire from the community that are saying that we need sidewalks because of whatever the safety issue is. That's why I asked you the question, sir, about in your opinion. And no disrespect to you, I'm sure you're very good at what you do. I don't know you personally, but professionally, I know you're very good at what you do. And I think that sometimes you just need to use judgment. This is a very established community. I don't see a burning desire for sidewalks in this area. We've all walked the neighborhood, driven the neighborhood. We don't see people actually saying that it's unsafe to walk on those streets. I've actually walked those streets a couple times and didn't even see any cars. And that was during the midday and even evening. Now, if you're on Oxford, if you're on Derbyshire, that's a different subject. Those streets do have sidewalks. I'll go with the district commissioner, but if she's looking for support not to put sidewalks in, I'll be right there with you. And if you don't want to put sidewalks in, I don't think the majority of the public would say that you're wrong, because it's truly subjective. We're going to be going into uncharted territory, as Commissioner Zimbauer, as well as one of the residents talked about parking on the driveway. So we're going to be, there's another piece of the equation that it's going to be looked at. To what extent do we want to inconvenience all these residents? We need to make sure that it's safe. We need to make sure that people can get to school. I know you were on the school board at one point. That's a primary concern of yours. I think people can get to the school very safely. I think it's important for us to look at traffic calming devices, because that's what the issue is on Oxford Road as well as Derbyshire, but that's not those small side roads. And so that's where I stand, if that helps you.
It does. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
So I think the question really before this board is a much larger one than English Estates. As Commissioner Delory realizes, as being with MetroPlan for many, many years on behalf of this board, looking into the future, there's a right thing for now, and then there's a look into the future. And so there's a huge concentration on walkable communities. There's a huge concentration on connected streets. There's a huge concentration as we move into the future of reducing the imprint and footprint of gasoline-operated vehicles, more biking, more walking, whether it's schools, shopping, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it really is going to be a larger picture as making a decision what we ultimately do in areas that don't currently have sidewalks, whether we, as a board, just say, you know what, it is what it is, we're not going to do anything further, or we are going to look to the future and say, well, yeah, it would be nice if those residents that one day could walk to the Publix without walking in the street, or bicycle to the Publix without having to do it in the street or have children playing or walking to school. I think it's a much larger question because we know there's a lot of developed areas in our county that just don't have sidewalks. And I get, again, that there's a lot of people who live there that don't want the sidewalks. We've all heard the arguments. And on this particular instance, we heard both sides of the story, both sides of the debate, which was, I want my children on a sidewalk. We've even had people say, I don't want children playing in front of my house. I don't know how that's any different than whether they're on the road or but I get it. And sometimes with leadership, it takes decisions that are uncomfortable or not popular if we're going to look to the future. So I think the bigger discussion, and again, I'm going to support whatever the district commissioner desires, but as a philosophy, we would be remiss if we don't do this now, looking to the future, so future boards don't have to have this argument about what is Seminole County going to look like as far as walkability, reducing its footprint of other transportation, and complete streets, and whether we're going to be part of that throughout our entire community. So, again, I'll support whatever the district commissioner's desire is, but I think we really need, from a philosophical standpoint, need to make a decision what we want the future of this county to look like as far as walkability and alternative transportation modes, whether it's bicycle, walking, et cetera.
Commissioner?
I would add to that, that doesn't just mean retrofitting. That means new development as well.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our new development actually comes with code that requires certain sidewalks laid out, which we have. In some cases, we forgo those and let them
Thank you.
deposit money into a fund, because you may not be able to put a sidewalk where there's a 10-foot deep ditch like in my district.
Ditches and sidewalks don't go well together. Oh, gosh.
Any further, Commissioner?
Well, yeah, so I want to thank all of you for your input, because this has certainly been a difficult discussion for this community, neighbors versus neighbors, and not everyone agrees with what they want to see for their neighborhood, and that seems to be a theme in our community these days, not just about sidewalks. But I agree, it does require leadership, and sometimes you have to make unpopular decisions. And without having someone that is going to stand up here and say that without these sidewalks, this is a dangerous situation, frankly, I don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze to go through and disrupt this neighborhood with these sidewalks at this point. I appreciate so much the time and effort that staff has gone into and the consultant has gone through to do this. And I know that you are working with the direction of sales tax, get the projects done, right? Because we were all beating that drum. But I think we do need to take a step back, starting with this project, and really look holistically at what it is we're trying to accomplish. And so I appreciate the support of my fellow commissioners for this community. And I know there will be people unhappy that there won't be sidewalks, but there will be as many people who are happy that there won't be sidewalks.
So I will throw my support behind the district commissioner for direction purposes.
I think we've got direction. However, I want to make sure that we're clear on it. When you say no sidewalks,
No
you're not
sidewalks.
including Oxford?
Well, yes. Oxford is another,
Okay.
yes,
Separate.
absolutely.
Okay.
To
So
me.
Other than Oxford, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that we're all clear.
Thank you for
Other than
clarifying.
Oxford.
Yeah.
Other than Oxford,
Yep.
you're saying no sidewalks in this community. That's what your recommendation
That is correct.
And the commissioners are willing to accept that recommendation.
Just for clarification, that's Oxford and Derbyshire.
Right.
Okay, well, that's what I was going to
Wanna be
say.
clear.
Okay, Oxford and Derbyshire sidewalks. The rest of the community, at this time, no sidewalks.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
And everybody, wait, I'm just saying, everybody okay with that?
Okay, here.
Okay. You got direction.
Got it.
All right.
All I would also like to see us do, wait a minute, just so we don't lose track of assets that we've already spent taxpayer time, let's take the study, put it on the shelf, keep it close, and I really think we really need to look at how we handle these
I think the word,
Holistically.
I think the message is very clear, and I think the staff understands that we need to have some sort of checklist as we move forward with these sidewalks, including parking, trees, safety, number one, safety, and all the other things. And that's something that we can start working on as we move forward. When the next one is presented, all those things will be part of a checklist, okay? Is that good with everybody?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, folks, I've been trying to get this closed by 12, but we have to do these things. This is important. And I don't want to hear anything from Commissioner Zimbauer because he's the one talking.
I just come back when I'm done eating.
Just kidding, Commissioner. Okay, so the next thing is the investment advisor, and I don't think we have much to go over, but let's talk about it.
I'll be very quick.
Because I do want to finish everything on this morning's agenda, knowing what we have in the afternoon.
Okay, and I will skip through a good portion of this. Just want to let you know, in fact, I'll skip through the first 3 slides in a second. The Fed has been basically at zero now for 13 months. I think that's important to acknowledge and understand. They cut to zero when there was no fiscal policy. Since there has been $5.6 trillion worth of fiscal policy enacted. The question is whether and when the Fed will start to raise the overnight rate from what had been an emergency situation. They're looking for real data, they're looking for employment numbers, and they're looking for inflation. And we're starting to see a lot of inflation. We're starting to see, we got 1 million new jobs that were added to payrolls in the month of March. The expectation is for April and May, it's going to be very similar. Things are really, really ramping up very, very quickly. Expectation is that this summer is going to be an explosion in terms of economic activity. So here and a lot of other places, and then of course we're waiting to see what the Fed is going to do. So I will skip through this. I will skip through the jobs report because I had already mentioned it. Retail sales, there was a really large retail sales surge during the month of March. April is expected to be very similar. So we get to the available investment options. I want you guys to know where the options are and what we're looking at. The chairman had asked the other day on our call when we would start to add additional treasuries. We did for a long period of time. Right now, the 3-month treasury is trading very, very close to zero. You have to go out 6 months to even get 3 basis points. So the answer that I had given the chairman was it may be a few more months. We would love to add full faith and credit treasuries to make it a stronger overall portfolio, but at this point in time, it doesn't make sense to do that. The Florida QPD savings rate, your banks, the relationships that the clerk's office had established that are very strong. The banks don't want the money, but the banks are taking the money. So the money, a lot of the money that Seminole County has invested is with the community banks, which is a plus. They're allowing these deposits to remain and actually taking more deposits at pretty good levels relative to other investments because they value the relationship and they expect that they're going to have lending opportunities as we roll forward into the summer when the economy starts to take off. The pool rates, just kind of giving you an idea, they continue to fall. The majority of the money that is in pools that the county has is in Florida Prime. Florida Prime is AAA. It is managed by Federated. We feel very safe and secure about that pool. It also happens to be the highest yielding pool. Wow. The Palm term rates, sometimes we will go out and invest in Palm term rates. That is also a pool that invests longer out, and their pool rates, of course, are also less than 10 basis points. So, recommendations, there are a couple of, well, they're no longer upcoming maturities. We had $20 million matured that was yielding 102, got called away actually. That was an agency. There was also a treasury note that matured on the 15th of April. That was a nice yield of 164. It's gone. Those two with the higher yields leaving the portfolio had the effect of pushing your yield down a little bit. I'll show you that in just a second. The recent investments since the last meeting, we did move money into a CD that was yielding 15 out 9 months, relative again to the other things. I think that made a lot of sense. We also invested in a Palm term rate at 14 out a year, again, relative to the other investments, that was solid. And then City National allowed 25 million more in deposits to be placed there at a 25. Again, relative to 2 and 3, that's pretty decent. And then Bank United, I think because of the relationships that the clerk's office had, also welcomed additional money. So we did some shuffling back and forth into what I feel are safe investments in community banks. And the recommended purchases, we would like to evaluate bank capacity. Right now, they're all full. That could easily change. If it does and they allow more deposits, we'll determine whether or not that makes sense. They don't want it now. We're also going to evaluate the pool holdings, a couple of the other pools that we have money. We requested a look at the underlying portfolio to make sure we feel secure about what they're investing in. We're also going to reallocate as appropriate and watch for opportunities. So if the economy really starts to boom, if yields start to move up on treasuries, we'll have the opportunity to buy. At this point, we do not expect to do that. So I need a motion to adopt the recommendations of me, and based on the report submitted today, to ratify the investment actions that were taken that I described to you, and also to direct the clerk to implement in the board recommendations.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. It's
Opposed?
good to see you in person.
Thank you very
Good to
much.
be here. Thank you all very much.
Take care, sir. Thank you very much. Lastly, we have the county attorney briefing. I see that Bryant is there on the screen. Bryant, good morning.
Morning. I know you've had a long morning, and I appreciate you.
Brian, we can't hear you.
He just muted himself. He just muted himself.
You're muted,
You're
Brian.
muted, Brian.
How about now?
Yes, there you go.
Sorry, I apologize. I know you had a long morning, and I thank you for your indulgence allowing me to do this morning. After the first couple sessions in the afternoon, I'm going to turn the meeting over completely to Paul in the afternoon. I know that all of you have been asked and pressured about what the county plans to do, as my office has been, and what the county is planning to do about possible reimbursement or restitution concerning the actions of the tax collector's office in the prior administration. One, I want to remind everybody that there has been no convictions. There's only been accusations, an indictment, and an audit. So I want to be very careful on what you comment on. But I have been working on looking at the appropriate firm to assist my office. I anticipate that if there is a lot of litigation on this, it's going to be handled a lot in-house, depending on what we find and what eventually is decided by the federal court system. I am currently negotiating with a firm in Orlando that has expertise in the areas that we would be concerned with. I am asking for your approval for an additional $45,000 added to my professional services budget, which currently still has $30,000 in it, for a total of $75,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year. The firm is expensive, no doubt about that, but I anticipate using them to do an initial analysis so that we're not using good money to chase bad money, if you so to speak. I want to make sure that we proceed cautiously, slowly, and appropriately. And so on that regard, what I'd like to do is have those additional funds added to my professional services budget. I will enter into a contract this week, if you agree to this concept, that we will begin the analysis of the best approach to take that's prudent and appropriate at this point in time. When I first contacted a firm in Tallahassee, they agreed with me that we still have plenty of time to pursue what we need to, depending on what the results are in other courts. So I would ask that you approve the transfer of additional $45,000 in my professional services budget, and I will also brief all of you individually, of course, as we're going along in this matter.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, discussion. Commissioner Lockhart.
Well, Mr. Applegate, I appreciate so much that you're already moving on this item. I think it's very attorney-like to want to move cautiously and slowly while the rest of us are just looking for pitchforks. So we appreciate you, and that's why we have attorneys, because they give us good advice. So I'm grateful for that. I do think that while it may not be something that is, I think you said the person you spoke to in Tallahassee still thought we had plenty of time. I also think that there is a reason for us to move forward as quickly as possible, because the public needs to know that we are doing everything that we can in a timely manner to pursue the return of all means possible, the return of their funds. So I think we've struck a nice balance between slow and steady and the rest of us with pitchforks.
No, understood, and certainly don't take my comment that there's plenty of time. Again, all of this is just on a cautious approach, but you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
We have a motion second. Further discussion?
I think this may take care of itself, quite frankly, depending on what ultimately happens. I mean, the federal judge has the ability to, as a restitution sentencing process. I don't want to get into that. We shouldn't get into that. That's something that the courts, I'm sure, are looking at and would consider. So, as Mr. Applegate clearly is very wise, and there's been charges brought. There's been no conviction. We've heard about pleas that may be entered. So quite frankly, we really just need to wait until, there's nothing wrong with being ready to strike, but we need to wait until the federal court, shakes out.
I'd like to call the question.
Yes, please.
I'd just like to call the question.
Oh, okay. I thought you said I have a question.
I don't.
That's what I said. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Applegate. We appreciate it. Paul Chipoff, anything more from the attorney's office?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, with that, we will call a recess. We have...
One other thing, in case you know, the governor just signed an extended executive order for another 60 days.
That's going to be discussed on at 1:30. Okay, everybody, we have more than a full hour. We will recess until 1:30. See y'all then.
Perfect.